We are going to be watching a segment today involving the creators iDubbbz, Ethan Klein, Hasan Piker, Denims, and a few other crazy characters. And the fight, while it is a battle of personalities who hate each other, the backdrop is the Israel-Gaza conflict. That's why these people no longer like each other. And so while it is drama, where two large creators, iDubbbz being like a kind of anti-social justice warrior, internet critical, cyber bully, cyber harassy person in the 2010s that everybody thought was funny and charming and cool up until late 2010s. And then Ethan Klein being somebody who was kind of anti-SJW, but then became a progressive and then streamed with Hasan Piker, who is the world's largest political streamer. You know, these characters are fighting and they're both large. That's pretty much it. So we're going to watch the drama. I'm going to pause it intermittently. I'm going to describe the dynamics between their conflict. I'm going to say what's good. I'm going to say what's bad. And if we go into the backdrop of the conflict, like the Israel-Palestine conflict, then I'm going to comment on that as well. So let's go ahead and get Mr. Hasan Piker back onto our screens, and then we'll take it from there.
To you live from a cloudy day here in California, Los Angeles. We're live and alive, and I hope all the boys, girls, and MBs are having a fantastic one because today's a beautiful day. I have a very important announcement. I've finally done it. I watched Ethan Klein's content nuke, and I'm not going to call it context puke as I normally do because the reality of the matter is it was brilliant. Nothing was out of context. Everything was correct. I am an Islamist, fundamentalist, radical terrorist. I am a vicious anti-Semite. It's true. Most importantly, Ethan is more attractive than me, both physically and also mentally. I've been lying about everything, including my glasses. They're fake. He was right about that. That's not even in the content nuke. And he was right about that too. How did he know everything? How? Wake up, Ethan. Wake up, Ethan. Ethan, wake up.
Yeah, it's real.
Wakey, wakey, Ethan. Wake up, Ethan. Wake up. Time to be awake, Ethan.
Wake up, Ethan.
This is no longer a dream. This is a nightmare. Wake up.
Ethan, the dumb bitch is telling you to wake up.
Wake up, Ethan. Wake up. Wake up, Ethan.
Ethan, wake up.
Wake up. Since anyone? Just wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up.
Wake up, Ethan.
I'm not going to do a react content yet, chat.
I'm the same. Nobody's telling you to wake up, Ethan.
Ooh, yummy. I love Sabra hummus.
Wake up, Ethan.
Ethan, wake up.
All right. So for those of you who don't know and who are kind of getting into the drama or whatever, or just understanding what's going on. So this is what hell is like. Sean, yes, exactly. Welcome aboard. My apologies. I am your guide to hell, okay? So, so Hasan Piker, this is the funniest thing. Hasan and Ethan Klein had a falling out over Israel-Palestine. And after that falling out, Ethan Klein created a content nuke about Hasan Piker, effectively documenting his myriad of sins. And his myriad of sins include, in my opinion, Philip Coffey, thank you for the $10. Much appreciated. Not a Fortnite skin, but here's my Helldivers war bond money. Please don't report me to the Secret Freedom Police. I will not. I will not. Thank you, Philip. I appreciate it. Good to have you back in the chat, buddy. I'm not going to lie. Then, all right, so let's talk about this real quick. So Hasan Piker did, like a decade ago, say that rich landlords deserve to be slaughtered in the street. He did say that America deserved 9/11. Now, you could steel man it to some geopolitical analysis, but after he got called out on that comment, he effectively defended the comment. Then he talked about a congressman getting their eye hole, sodomized is the wrong word, but penetrated physically by the phallus of a Taliban warrior. That was another one of his spicy takes. Then when October 7th came out, he seemed overly sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. If you sympathize with Palestine, that's totally fine. I'm not talking smack about whether or not you can sympathize with Palestine. That's totally fine. But then what he did is he effectively, rhetorically, and logically justified terrorism. And then he also minimized the sexual assaults that did occur on October 7th, saying that because the rapes and murders of October 7th, the rapes specifically, were not systematic, he didn't care about them because the genocide of the Gazan people outweighs the rapes of human beings. And by the way, as a matter of fact, I need to change my display thing. Thank you for the donation. I'll get to it momentarily. By the way, I don't know if you know this. Two things can be bad at once. I know that I'm stating the obvious because my audience isn't retarded. Thank you for not being so stupid. However, two things can be bad at once. Israel destroying 80% of buildings within Gaza and killing 40,000 people, half of whom are militants and half of whom are civilians, and then also destroying some of the civilian infrastructure in Gaza, and then playing footsie with the Trump administration in order to effectively do ethnic cleansing in the Gaza Strip, all of that can be horrific. And then in the same breath, I can also say that Hamas militants intentionally butchering approximately 1,000 civilians and then also sexually assaulting some of said civilians is so repulsive and disgusting as a matter of being a codified militant force, that codified militant force, the Al-Qassam brigades and the government of Hamas, should be destroyed wholesale. I can say both of those statements, and they are not contradictory. Didn't know if you guys knew that. Dude Mansu for $10, thank you kindly for the donation, says, take my gosh darn money, Connor. I can't watch this slop content by Hamas apologists again. Well, Dude Mansu, thank you for the donation, even though you can't take the psychic damage. I have to, by law, take this psychic damage. Christian Blair says, how are you going to make a content cop something you previously apologized for just to do one, which includes a dude who has done 3 times worse stuff? Yeah, that's kind of going to be the crux of the criticism, I suppose. Val says, if I were a leftist, I would be concerned that Hasan is a psyop to make their side look bad. Yeah, agreed. He is not. He is just stupid, said Mr. Bombastic. I'm not sure which one you're referencing, but yes, I agree with you. I also think that the Bibi government is committing war crimes and Bibi himself should be tried at The Hague. And listen, I'm not going to defend, the slaughter of 20,000 civilians. I can say that's bad. And also sexually assaulting civilians and murdering them is bad. And anybody who is guilty of either crime should at minimum be prosecuted in a criminal context, or they should be wiped off of the face of the planet. I can say that. Raymond Smith says, I'm working on a picture. I'll send it to you. Computer keeps crashing. Okay. Appreciated. Let's continue. We're very early into the content.
All right. I didn't plan on making a content comp on H3. It sounds very stupid even saying that. H3 content cop, iDubbbz. Ethan Klein's out of control. And then you should do a content cop on Hasan Piker. Content cop on Sargon of Akkad. If I would imagine this in 2016, I would have been like, oh yeah, if I ever do that, it's gotta be because I lose the plot. Well, it turns out it's not me losing the plot, it's Ethan. He's the one who fucking attacked first.
My good fucking friends who I stood by after all these fucking years can't find a spine to speak up.
So go fuck yourself.
I agree.
All right, guys, I'm going to tell you a story about Ethan Klein. I know some of you have been following him, but there's a lot of people who might not be familiar with the background, with his podcast, with what's been going on over the past couple of years. So Ethan, as you know, is a content creator who has a podcast where he says all sorts of outrageous stuff. Sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's fucked up. He's had shows with all sorts of different controversial characters. He's had a show with Trisha Paytas. He's had a show with Hasan Piker. In doing so, he's gathered a ton.
Sean Kaplan sarcastically, I need say, says, there are no Israeli citizens, only settlers and genociders, which is something that I believe that Hasan Piker, either inadvertently, he had a Freudian slip where he said, there's baby settlers. Now, this is in the context of who's talking about like valid military targets. So the inference being that there are settlers in the West Bank and presumably in like northern Gaza, I guess. I don't know how many settlers there are in Gaza, probably mostly in the West Bank, right? But we're talking about valid military targets. And so when he says that there are baby settlers and they're talking about settlers being valid military targets, the implication being that you could kill kids and have that be like legally justified. Now, maybe this is my Western chauvinism showing. Maybe this is me just kind of, being a Western imperial dog. However, I am of the opinion that you should minimally kill civilians at all costs, children in particular, because they have the opportunity to grow and change. You should try to kill a minimum amount of children. And then if, God forbid, let's say you get into a military conflict and you kill military-aged men and women who are armed in said conflict, and then there's children who are left unscathed physically by said conflict, then you should probably take them into your custody and try to return them to your opponent's side at a time that is going to minimize the harm to the children as much as possible. That's my opinion. Now, that's a Western chauvinist, military imperialist position on like the rules and laws of warfare and moral conduct in war. This is not something that the organization of Hamas or Hezbollah share, which are organizations that Hasan Piker backs. So Sarav Joshi says, I don't know why YouTube keeps recommending different Hasan channel even after selecting don't recommend the channel. Well, the good news is I'm not a Hasan channel, so welcome aboard. Mr. Bombastic says, Valor Media Network, how much do you know about the iDubbbz, by the way? So with iDubbbz, as far as I know, he got really popular doing critical video essays about other content creators in the mid-10s and late 10s. He used to have pretty edgy rhetoric and effectively say that you can't be racist in one direction and not racist in the other direction. You need to be, if you're going to say slurs about certain groups of people, then you need to be able to say slurs about everybody. I think one of his most famous quotes is, it's either good for everyone or it's not good for anyone. And since then, he's moved into the more progressive camp, where his content, frankly, for the past 2 or 3 years has sucked. I'm also aware of the Sam Hyde interview in which he tried to interview the controversial internet figure Sam Hyde and try to punk him and show how he had like fallen off via a documentary. But Sam Hyde kind of reversed the documentary and turned it into like a post-ironic comedy where he was screwing with iDubbbz the entire time. And as a result, iDubbbz basically had a documentary that was very difficult to edit because Sam Hyde had screwed with him and pranked with him the entire time that he was around. That's what I know about iDubbbz in a minute. That was Ethan crashing out? Well, you can make an argument that he's caring about things that he shouldn't care about, Jonah Boy. As a matter of fact, that's going to be one of my arguments that I actually agree with iDubbbz on, because I pre-watched maybe 10 or 15 minutes of this. However, we'll get there when we get there. Assuming his criticism of Ethan are accurate, justified, I can't wait to hear the justification for including Hasan. Yeah, right. Yes, he's not going to address that. I'm just going to go ahead and jump ahead and say that he's not going to address why he has Hasan, the Houthi terror apologist, why he has Hasan, the Hezbollah terrorist apologist, why he has Hasan, the there were no rapes on October 7th. You could say no systematic rapes, but I'm pretty sure I've heard him say the former as well. Why he thought it was good to platform I hope veterans get PTSD, Frogan, and also Denims, another Hasan waiting room, who cheered on the fact that a parent had been a Zionist. And the way that she phrased it was incredibly dumb. I'll give her the charitable read. The charitable read is that a parent was a Zionist and then stopped being a Zionist and supporting the state of Israel after 6 months of talking to their progressive child. The way that she read it, though, it sounded like a parent had gone from supporting the state of Israel to supporting the terrorist organization Hamas, and she was cheering that on. Now, I'll give her the charitable read, but that clip is like heinous. And to say that there are Islamist jihadist sympathizers in Hasan, Denims, and Frogan's audience is not an overstatement. That's just 100% accurate. Christian Blair says he didn't say it exactly, but he defended it. The person who said it was Second Thought. Interesting. No more Israelis in Gaza. It comes from Second Thought, though, saying that all Israelis are settlers and legitimate targets. There we go. Basically, all the settlers were kicked out of Gaza when Israel left Gaza back in the day. Settlers would basically be in the West Bank. Yeah, there we go. That's more to my understanding as well. All I know about iDubbbz is that he used to say the N-word. That's what most people know about iDubbbz. Hippopotati says, I think I disagree with your argument that the rapes were not systematic as there was too much of a pattern, but okay, it would be at least arguable. To say there were no rapes, rape apology is not arguable. Hippopotati, I'm on your side, okay? I actually think that one rape or one family intentionally slaughtered by Hamas is enough to condemn the entire organization, particularly if they don't bring those participants to justice, right? That's the thing about like Americans, right? We had a guy named Robert Bales. I don't know if you know that, but I actually have a friend who served with him. Robert Bales was an American sociopath who deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan multiple times. He walked off of base and he started slaughtering Afghan civilians, and he killed men, women, and children, literally like a few dozen. And Robert Bales is currently serving a life sentence in Fort Leavenworth prison without opportunity for parole. That's how we treated our murderer, okay? That's how we treated our person who killed civilians. As far as I can tell, Hamas lionizes the slaughter of civilians and praises it and thinks that it's good. And there are no actions that I know of by the government of Hamas to hold the people who raped and murdered women at the music festival. There's no efforts on their behalf to hold the rapists in their ranks to account. And so as a result, if you're not going to hold the rapists and murderers in your own organization to account, then I think your organization should be wiped out. That's the way that I feel about it. Yeah, dude was literally the hot, I have no interest in serving my country, I simply want to kill meme. Unironically. Yes, he was a sociopath. The chain of command knew that he was a problem for a while, but because he was a good soldier who was willing to go into danger repeatedly, they swept for him being a psycho, and then eventually he snapped and did some psychotic stuff. Yes, unironically.
Of different audiences. Now, in his podcast with Hasan, Leftovers, they would mostly talk about surface level progressive shit and make fun of right-wingers.
And you're telling me he didn't flick their dick once at least?
Oh, that's 100 shavers, you trans women. I say, oh no!
And it was mostly that until they actually had to reckon with a very serious topic. I would say that Hasan was very well equipped to talk about that topic.
Palestinian people living in the West Bank are subject to these horrific conditions, horrific living conditions by the state of Israel, America's greatest ally and the only democracy in the Middle East, if you ask Republicans and even liberals.
Well, the dance he invented was so kick-ass.
Israeli settlers are trying to evict Palestinian families in occupied East Jerusalem. The United Nations says that may be a war crime. It literally is.
Was just eating the toppings. And the pizza looked like a burn victim. It was all disgusting.
I don't know if you can make that joke in 2021.
Why?
It's insensitive to burn victims.
I think that's a good analogy. It's a powerful image.
Ethan was not prepared for this. Ethan, the whole time, is more of the goof guy. And that's fine. You know, we don't expect Ethan to be an expert on the topic. Ethan was obviously caught in this tricky situation where he is extremely sympathetic to the Israeli cause and what's happening to them. His wife's Israeli. She served in the IDF. He obviously likes the state of Israel. On the other hand, he's just got done capturing a massive progressive audience who are very politically savvy. They follow Hasan. Hasan is strictly a political streamer. So this is something they're very keyed into. So when they see Ethan say things that are just like not accurate and it's just propaganda, they're going to call it out.
From the river to the sea essentially means the state of Israel is going bye-bye.
So this massive progressive audience that Ethan has, adopted over the years, they're becoming increasingly critical of his position because now he's talking about it not on Leftovers. He's now talking about it on his podcast.
What I want to do is show you guys how I see Israel, because you don't see that. When you listen to Hasan and you hear all these fucking mega lefties talking about it like it's some super racist, crazy, like Jim Crow style of society. Like, I can't wait to show you guys.
The other day, Bibi fired a really good guy that a lot of people are pissed about.
So Ethan is having this back and forth.
So hold on. We need to start cracking this apart. The problem is I unfortunately already know a substantive amount of these criticisms and why these criticisms suck. So Mr. Bombastic brings this up already, and this is a counter to the following statement. Hasan was well equipped to have that conversation. He's been talking, and this isn't a direct quote, but this is what's implied through the clips. He's been talking about Israel for a long time. since 2019. But I almost guarantee you, I think that Hasan has been doing political commentary with the Young Turks since the early 2010s. So he has been talking about geopolitics for a decade. But here's the thing. I'm just going to be mean about it. I'm going to say sorry to Ken. I'm going to say sorry to my mother. Hasan Piker is a fucking retard. Okay? Hasan Piker is a dummy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's very stupid. He doesn't have the real like biopic of Hasan, the real biography is that Hasan Piker was born to a rich family in Turkey. His family had him in New Jersey. That way he would be a United States citizen. He was raised in Turkey in incredible wealth and privilege. He moved to, I think it was Miami. I think he went to the University of Miami when he was a teenager. He partied and was a club promoter until then. Then in the late aughts and early 10s, he started like the bro channel where he basically did, I'm not going to lie, it's kind of like early red pill content where he talks about like how to pick up chicks and how to self-improve and how to do this and how to do that. Then he becomes a more political himbo is what they called. So bimbo, but for men. He becomes an attractive talking piece for the Young Turks. After several years doing it for the Young Turks, I think it's got to be middle 10, so like 16, 17, I guess. I would have to take a look at his history. He becomes a politics streamer because he wants his own thing separate from the Young Turks, so he leaves the Young Turks. He streams for the past half decade to a decade. Destiny helps him with the start, raids into him a bunch of times. He becomes popular in his own right, and he attracts a far left audience. That is Hasan Piker's expertise. That's his lived experience, is being a Nepo baby who got a media job when he was very young, who became a streamer and who was helped out by other large streamers. Let's face it, because he's physically attractive. He's not particularly insightful. He's not particularly intelligent. He's not particularly well-versed in history. He doesn't have a good command of the facts. He falls apart like wet tissue paper in debates. And the only debates that he does good on, his opponents are actual morons, like sub 80 IQ morons. And so pretending that Hasan was well equipped to have that conversation, the only way that you can think that is if you yourself are also like 80 IQ. That's my personal perspective. If you love Hasan Piker and you're in my chat, my apologies for insulting your intelligence. However, that's genuinely how I feel. Genuinely how I feel. I think that if you think Hasan Piker is an intelligent person, I think that you yourself are kind of stupid. Being real. Sorry to the progressives who follow Valor Media Network. Sorry to the Hasan fans in chat. Not my cup of tea. Gonna be real. K Soko says, looking back, how the heck did Ethan and Hasan start collaborating? It was a clout gambit. So Hasan knew that H3H3 Productions was one of the biggest podcasts on the planet. He also was kind of like iDubbbz says, he's kind of a goof, right? He's not really like a particularly serious person. So it was a very large platform, very easy job, very easy money. And then Ethan Klein knew that Hasan was a large, up-and-coming, young audience, progressive streamer, right? Very well equipped. I spit my coffee. I'm behind on chat, but yeah, that's pretty funny. I wouldn't be able to identify Yemen on an unlabeled map either. Okay, well, let me help you. Let me help you real quick. I love doing geopolitics, okay? Let me pull over here, Google Maps. Maps, Yemen. Let me pull it up. I'm going to make this very easy for you, Gen X. You're going to look at your screen because you're going to get an education, okay? So this is the United States. There's me. This is Europe, obviously. You can recognize France. You can recognize the United Kingdom. You should recognize them from their silhouettes, right? This is Africa. I hope you recognize that. And then this belt is known as the Middle East and North Africa, okay? The reason why Israel is such an important part of the world is because it's at the crossroads of humanity. If you're in Africa and you want to go to Europe, you pass through Israel. If you're in Europe, you want to go to Africa and you go by land, then you go through Israel. If you're in the Far East and you want to go into Europe or Africa, you go through Israel and or Syria, Iraq, right? That's why this area has been rife with history and conflict, is because it's effectively the birthplace of civilization, because all civilizations traveled through this area throughout time and history, right? The reason why you would be able to find Yemen on a map is because, number one, they're miscellaneous ships, so we know that they're by an ocean, right? Number two, we know that the Saudi Arabians are attacking them, so they should be around Saudi Arabia. Number 3, they're being supported by Iran, which is right here. The Houthi rebels in particular are being supported by Iran. So Iran is sending weapons and equipment by ship into Yemen in order to support rebels who are fighting Saudi Arabia. And then Saudi Arabia, that is right here, is bombing the poopy out of Yemen. So hopefully this very quick... Oh, and then here's the Suez Canal, which goes through Egypt. Egypt is in the upper right-hand corner of the continent of Africa. Here's the Nile River, one of the most historically important places on the planet. The Suez Canal is right here. And this is a man-made canal that allowed trade to flourish across Eurasia, and therefore is one of the most important trade routes on the planet, which is why Houthi pirates missiling ships randomly has been such a massive problem. Because like 40% of the world's trade goes through the Suez. When was the... I'm going to use Google. When was this? Why didn't you just go to Google? Seriously, computer. You know I want Google. When was the Suez Canal built? 1859. So 150 odd years ago was when the Suez Canal was complete. One of the most important achievements by mankind ever. So, just catching up with chat real quick. I suspect Hasan Piker is more malicious than that, but yes, he doesn't act like a complete dummy. Yeah, Hasan certainly wouldn't be as popular if he wasn't attractive, I think. I agree. Which I guess I need to work on my attractiveness levels. I need to himbo max. That's what I need to do. I need to talk to taking steroids. I need to dye my beard, and I need to start wearing muscle shirts, I guess. Whale QC John says, Gen X, to be fair, lately Destiny seems to be losing his mind too, or it's just black pill. He's getting to the point of bad tactics too. A lot of people are feeling pretty hopeless, but guess what? Not us, okay? Not us. All right, anyways, I'm just going to scroll up chat and keep on with the content for the sake of the VOD viewers. Hippo, Connor only knows because he's military. I don't know what I know, but we'll figure it out in a minute. Let's go.
Forth with his...
Oh, yeah. So Gen X, I would say, tell me you are American without saying you are American, but that would be unfair to Connor here. I lived in Europe as a child, so I cheated. So I lived in Europe. I went to elementary school in Europe. I went to a French school in middle school in the state of Texas. I've traveled a lot. I've seen a lot. I've done a lot. And yes, the military helped. And I'm also a history nerd, 100%. Philip Coffey says, I don't know if Hasan is a progressive, but I know if he represents progressivism, then I'm not a progressive. No, you can call him a leftist. I would just say because he's vaguely pro-trans people, he's vaguely pro-gay, he's vaguely sex positive, all that crap. I would put that in the progressive camp. But of course, Hasan Piker is a leftist, right? He's a socialist or socialist simp.
Liberal audience, leftist people online, progressive content creators, Hasan, all of these different people. He's finding new people every day, basically, to get in fights with.
Of all people, this guy, Matt Lieb, Frogan and Denims and all these dipshits, and everybody thinks this guy's awesome, apparently. Even though he looks like Millhouse, fucking dork. Denims, by the way, was the real villain of the video. Evil, hateful, fucking... And I'll say it, and I'll double down on it. And people... Oh, no?
No,
there?
And it's all culminated, at least for my story, in Ethan burning bridges with people until he burned the bridge with me. Since Ethan and Hasan's falling out, I've been keeping to myself mostly. I don't have many nice things to say. Maybe if Ethan's able to get some help, maybe if he stops harassing other creators, maybe if he does these things, eventually he'll find peace and we can like rekindle our friendship. So that's been my approach. I've occasionally thrown a joke Ethan's way in the form of Hasan Piker versus Ethan Klein for boxing.
I like iDubbbz. He's a good guy, but I don't like this stupid. It's not a fucking petty beef. It's like this guy's evil and he's doing anti-Semitism. And also he's way out of my weight class.
He didn't like that, but fucking sometimes you gotta just throw something out there. I used to work with this video editor named Froggy Tonic. I discovered him because he was in the circles online that I was in. And one of those circles is an H3 fan. He watched Ethan's content. He liked Ethan's content until he didn't like Ethan's content. There would be an occasional Froggy tweet where I'd be like, I agree with that. You know, like I'm not going to endorse it. I'm not going to retweet it or like it.
Okay. let's catch up with the content a little bit. So Ethan is a goof. I wouldn't pick Ethan as like my debate avatar in this drama, right? Like I would pick somebody else, right? I would pick Destiny, frankly. I think Destiny would physically assault these people, rhetorically assault these people is more what I mean. Wife is an IDF veteran and Israeli. This is an okay point to make because obviously Ethan is going to have sympathy. You know, his sympathies are going to lie with the Israeli state, but the audience turned against Ethan when he said something that was wholly inaccurate, which was from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free is the full quote. That's the full chant. Okay. We're going to go back into our geopolitical crap real quick, but let me wrap up the other ones. He says that Ethan Klein picks up on a lot of enemies because people are attacking him, but he attacks back. He's not an innocent party in the online drama. This culminated in Ethan attacking iDubbbz for insufficiently backing him. It's not a petty, and Ethan says this is not a petty beef. He's actually evil and anti-Semitic. And Froggy Tonic, who's an editor of iDubbbz, liked Ethan until he didn't. Okay. And then let's look at this tweet because who is it? iDubbbz is saying he agrees with this tweet. So Ethan Klein, do you really think putting yourself, your crew, and your audience in a semantic competition over a petty year-old I'm right, you're wrong obsession you cannot get over is the right strategy? Stop tormenting yourself. Listen to Hasan. Listen, man, I'm going to be real. Okay. If I'm your co-host and I'm Irish by ethnicity, right? Let's say that the United Kingdom starts slaughtering Irish people left, right, and center. And let's say that there's a North Ireland militia that sneaks into Ireland and slaughters 1,200 civilians. And then you, as my co-host, start saying, well, you know, the Irish have done all sorts of bad things throughout history. So what are you going to do? Right? Like, you know, of course the Northern Irish are going to slaughter civilians. And then on top of that, you say, hey, the Northern Irish raped a bunch of people, but it's not systematic. You know, there might have been a few people who were raped and murdered, but it's not like that was the policy of the Northern Irish militia. I'm going to hate your guts, right? Like I'm going to hate you as a person. I'm going to think that you're evil because you're excusing terrorism, rape, and murder. So I'm going to think that you're a dog shit person, right? And so as a result, Ethan hating Hasan with his whole being is not a problem for me. And also saying like, oh, he got wrapped up on it. He's Israeli. The conflict is still ongoing. Of course he's wrapped up on it. He wakes up every single day and he probably gets a dozen DM messages calling him like a massive Zionist piece of shit who's responsible for the slaughter of countless Gazans, right? So, and then also it's going to be Hasan Piker from Hasan Piker's audience because Hasan Piker is making excuses for the quote unquote Palestinian resistance, right? And so we're going to go back to geopolitics momentarily, but Grassroots Hegemon, good to see you, and thank you for the donation. I'm going to thank you, Philip Coffee, Dude Man Sue, and Grassroots Hegemon for donating so far this stream. It is greatly appreciated. Grassroots Hegemon says, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be Arab is the full quote. Well, you know, some people say that, right? Not everybody. Palestine will be free. And by the way, Hasan Piker says that the only solution is a one-state solution in which the Palestinians politically dominate. Like, what do you think is going to happen, right? If the Palestinians are in political charge through sheer weight of numbers in Israel? Like, I'm genuinely asking. Hasan would say like, oh, well, they'll figure out how to exist peacefully in a democratic system. And it's like, no, they're not. No, they're not. No one with like the political experience greater than a 14-year-old thinks that a one-state majority Palestinian democracy, secular democracy somehow, even though the people aren't secular, is going to somehow be like flourish in this region of the world. Let's pull up the map again. Israel maps. Let me pull this over. We're doing another geopolitical lesson. Gen X, stop playing your video game. Stop typing whatever you're typing and look at the Google Maps, okay? So here we go. This is the Suez Canal. We were here a moment ago for our geopolitical lesson. This is Israel. Here is Gaza and the West Bank. The West Bank is still Palestinian-controlled territory. I think is it the Palestinian Authority or is it someone else, okay? But here's the river. This is the River Jordan, I think. the Dead Sea. It's the Jordan River. It has to be, right? Because Jordan's right there. Anyways, so here's the river. Here's the sea. So if you think from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, what you're effectively saying is that the state of Israel will no longer exist. It will become the state of Israel. Now, the nice Palestinians are going to say, well, Jews and Israelis have always been people of the book, and therefore they can live in a Palestinian majority state, and they don't have to worry about political persecution. As a matter of fact, if you look through vast swaths of history, that was the case. And as a matter of fact, that's actually kind of what Islam calls for. Islam does call for the planetary domination of the Islamic religion, and then for Christians and Jews as people of the book to be tolerated as citizens of the Ummah, like maybe the Ummah is too specific, but as citizens of the caliphate, but second-class citizens, okay, let's be real. So the people who are peaceful say, yeah, you could live in our one-state majority Palestinian city and we won't kill you. And then the non-peaceful ones who bear an ethno-religious grudge, they say, screw that. Zionists are effectively Nazis, which is what a lot of leftists argue. Therefore, whatever you did to Nazis is what we have to do to Israelis. So Ethan Klein being upset at the conflation between peaceful Palestinians who want a one-state solution and non-peaceful Palestinians and people outside of Palestine who want a one-state solution, it's okay for him to be upset about that. It's logically coherent for him to be upset about that. And for iDubbbz to be like, no, they're all peaceful. It's like, and I'm not saying he said that explicitly. I feel like that he's saying that implicitly because that's what Hasan says, is that it should be a Palestinian majority one state, right? So I think iDubbbz is woefully politically naive and possibly has like an IQ of unironically like 89. Christian Blair says, to make that comparison historically accurate, the Irish would attack the British civilians on mainland Britain? Probably. Hasan's friend's second thought said that all Israelis are legitimate targets. That's exactly what we're talking about, by the way. And Hasan says that was wrong. And Hasan couldn't say that was wrong. Hasan covers for second thought, and he covers for Bad Empanada, who says similar things. The exact opposite of what's happening now. It would be the same, just reversed. Yes. It'll be an enlightened secular democracy where the people will join hands forgetting the sins of the past, and they'll all be singing Kumbaya. Doom spiral. Unironically, there are Hasan Piker people, or there are people who got suckered in by Hasan Piker like iDubbbz here, and they believe that. They think that. They think that like, oh yeah, a one-state solution sounds great. Don't I believe in democracy? Don't I believe in pluralism? Don't I believe in ethno-religious diversity? So if we can do it in the United States of America, why can't they do that over in Israel? And the reason why is because as soon as you let the security guards down, buses start blowing up and people start getting kidnapped and murdered. That's why, right? I practice that's an absurd suggestion. I'm assuming that you're just saying that, oh, if you're talking to somebody in chat, I guess. But thank you for the comment, Kay. I do appreciate it. I prefer the liberal democratic lit culture instead of the Islamic one. Yeah, me too. Me too. I am critical of Israel. I'm a liberal Zionist, right? That's what, who is it? Liberal Zionist is something that Bad Empanada accuses Ethan Klein of being. I'm one too. Okay. I like freedom. I like freedom of speech. I like freedom of conscience. I like the right to self-defense. I like limited government. I like due process under the law. I like equality of rights. I like the prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. I love all that stuff. Okay. I want that to be spread across the world. However, I feel like Israel is more close to what I want for the world than Palestine. And therefore, if the Palestinians, specifically Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, got into power in Israel, I think there would be mass slaughters of Jews. And considering I'm not a fan of mass slaughter in general, no. No is the answer. Israel has the military capacity. Israel has the political power. Therefore, the best thing that you can work for or hope for is for Palestinians to agree to a two-state solution, and then for them to give up on the war and for them to focus on domestic development, domestic economic and social development, so they can become a thriving polity separate from war. That would be my solution. Soko says, Connor, will you be having Brianna on as a guest on this network? Maybe as a guest, Brianna will be coming on, but I don't think that we're going to be collaborating in the future. To be honest, I just said that I wanted to wrestle in the mud with pigs more often. She said that she didn't want to do that. And so I think we just have different visions. So it is what it is. We'll probably talk in the future and do like a collaborative, on a specific topic or a debate on a specific topic. But I don't think we're going to be doing a long form or a show together. We probably won't be doing a show together. We'll just be doing like a single debate or a single combo. Mr. Bombastic says, late culture says, leading culture that supposedly allows all others to coexist. Based. All right, let's continue.
But fair enough.
I guess I just missed my old friend. Some wings are too bird feathered colored.
Now that brings us to February 28th of this year. Now, my former editor of a year and a half ago did say some truly mean shit. He called Hila the C word. He said they're trying to kill their dog with cheddar cheese and a bunch of other shit, I'm sure. Ethan, at some point, discovers that iDubbbz former editor says this horrendous shit about him and Hila. But no one's asking the question, where does Ethan get this information from? You see, it would be very obviously a problem if Ethan was discovering this content by scrolling through Twitter looking for something to upset himself with. He has maybe set it up in such a way where his employees feel the need to send him this information, and that would be horrible. They shouldn't be doing that. They should be sending you things that are entertaining for your show that don't fucking trigger the hell out of you. Why is there so much work being put into discovering this guy on Twitter who's barely getting any interactions, linking him to me and posting on the Reddit when there's no work being put into who the fuck is the person on the Reddit who's posting this in the first place? If you do a little bit of research, it seems like it's an account whose intention is to make Ethan crash out. One of the users on the Snark Reddit points this out. They're like, I've seen this account before. This account has scraped its history, and it's now trying to make Ethan burn bridges. This is within Ethan's own community. Like, this is the thing that he needs to be critical of. It's not me. So yes, I am willing to admit that my former editor was being very nasty, uncharitable, and fucked up towards Ethan and Hila on Twitter. But Ethan and Hila are doing the same shit on their podcast. So I don't want to fucking hear it.
Terrorist supporter.
The CEO of Twitch.
Pedophile.
Now I'm going to watch and respond to the two podcast streams where Ethan and Hila call us spineless cowards.
Anyway, this guy was saying shit like that Hila's a Nazi, that she kills kids, that she went on she's a IDF baby killer, all this types of shit. And that's showing up right up on us Nisa's and iDubbbz feed. My good fucking friends who I stood by after all these fucking years can't find a spine to speak up. You know why? Because they'll get murdered.
You don't know what's on my feed. What the fuck is happening? For all you know,
So hold up. This stuff is actually like mad funny. I'm not going to lie. So looking at this. Froggy Tonic said a bunch of mean stuff. Okay, I'm with iDubbbz, believe it or not, on this stuff. I don't care. Maybe because I've been inculcated. I've been groomed by the YouTube commentary community. Okay, so the YouTube commentary community is, I would say, run by. Now I'm making a joke, but run by a few characters. It's run by Nicholas Diorio, Chud Logic, Queeman, and Augie RFC, a few other people. And these are just kids who, they're kids to me anyways, except for Chud. Chud's a little bit older. I think he's my age. They're kids who get up every day and they just look for the drama. They look for what's going on the internet, and they make wildly entertaining content as a result of it, because effectively what they do is they find the dumbest person on the internet and they make fun of them for hours. And so it's funny. So like if you're bored on a Friday night, bored on a Saturday night, bored on a Sunday night, whatever, and you're chilling and you're eating your food and you're kind of getting ready for bed and you need something dumb to listen to, it's great content that is like mindless and stupid and entertaining. And so and the metrics reflect, right? They are very popular as a result of the content that they pick. But what they have is they have an editor. And the editor basically, who is it? It's Chud Logic's editor, DK Edits. And he is one of the most abrasive, rude people on the internet. And Chud Logic basically said, like, you're never going to get me to fire this guy because I don't care what he does in his private conduct. Therefore, shut up about it. And so in the commentary community, there's kind of like this treaty that we don't do, and I'm not in commentary, but we don't do guilt by association. So just because you're friends with a bad person doesn't mean that we assign all of the bad perspectives to you. And that kind of keeps the peace to a certain degree. And so if iDubbbz is saying that Ethan is going out of his way to find people who are friends of friends who hate him, then that is like antisocial, stupid, childish playground morality that is going to drive you slowly insane. That is the steel man of iDubbbz's position. Ethan's position, though, is that this has moved out of the realm of casual talking smack or talking smack on the internet. People have called Child Protective Services on Ethan, and they're effectively bombarding him constantly with like anti-Semitic messages that are threatening like death and rape and murder and all that kind of stuff, and threatening his kids and this, that, the other. And so what he's saying is that back when iDubbbz was quitting being iDubbbz, I guess, and stop being so mean and cruel, there was a lot of people who were talking smack about him and his wife, Anissa Joma, who is an OnlyFans model. And so at the time, Ethan and Gila Klein took a lot of public flack saying like, no, you guys don't get it. These are fundamentally good people. Stop dogging them so hard. And so they might have taken some of the heat off of iDubbbz. And so they're expecting a level of reciprocity that they're not getting. Now, there's a weird, believe it or not, here's like a little tidbit for later. Believe it or not, there's actually an ethno-religious reason for that. As a matter of fact, I'll just spoil it. Anissa Joma, despite having tattoos, despite being an OnlyFans model who shares nudes on the internet, she is actually like half Lebanese and therefore feels like a mild amount of ethno-religious loyalty to the Palestinian and Lebanese people because they're constantly being attacked by Israel, right? So that's crazy to me, to effectively violate every cultural standard of your host nation or your nation of ancestry, and yet somehow you're like simping for them as well. Like, you can simp for them as people. I have no problem with that, and just saying like there's good people in Lebanon and I don't like that they're getting killed by Israel. That's totally fine. But then not defending your Jewish Israeli sympathetic friend because you have an ethno-religious sympathy to Lebanese people, I do think that's weird. I do think that's worth criticizing. Grassroots Hegemon, thank you for the $5. Says, you forgot the king, the hot salesman himself, Mr. Medicare, great internet villain of the time. True, true, true. Now, I missed the Medicare days. I was not around for his peak. And frankly, I think a lot of people have told me that Mr. Medicare was going to die of cancer, but they've been telling me that for a decade. So I have no idea when he's actually going to die. Now, I have been... Buy a hat for your hat. Okay, thank you, Grassroots. Appreciate it. Thank you for the donations. I am going to grab some water, but I'm going to let the content play because, frankly, it's an hour long. I'm going to pull a Hasan and let the chair watch iDubbbz for a moment, but I will be right back. Mr. Bombastic says, to be fair, I don't think the Lebanese are fundamentalist Muslims. They live in a much more diverse ethno-religious society. There are Lebanese Christians, there are Lebanese Muslims, there were Lebanese Jews, and they lived in relative peace, I think, up through the 1980s. But then in the 1980s, there was a horrible civil war, and some of the violence since that time has carried on. Silver Jacket Man says, that's silly. I'm of Welsh origin. I'm not going to surrender to the British to honor my ancestors. I can't tell if you're saying that means that you are going to talk shit about the British, or if you're not. I don't know. I don't know which way you're splitting on that comment. But anyways, I'm going to grab some water. I'll be right back.
Only use the For You tab. For all you know, I only use lists. For all you know, I'm seeing these things tweeted out by my editor of a year and a half ago and saying, God, that is nasty. I'm just not going to throw someone away because they're having a parasocial weird moment. Just like I'm not going to throw Ethan Klein away because he's having a parasocial weird crash out.
How many women I fucked? Hasan, by the way, thousands.
Yeah, thousands.
Let me ask Galia. These shoes do not go. I'm sorry. Oh my God. Hassan's the type of dude who watches himself in the mirror when he has sex.
Watching me on a 30-second delay on your stream.
Wait, how does he know I'm watching already?
Because you've been talking about it for the last 5 minutes.
It's not a fucking petty beef. It's like this guy is evil and he's doing anti-Semitism. These shoes do not go. I'm sorry.
There are many people, I'm sure, who have unfollowed you for the things that you have said and done. And I'm sure there are even more people who have stayed following you because they don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. They don't want to throw someone away because they've had some hard moments. We're all fucking human.
My good fucking friends who I stood by after all these fucking years can't find a spine to speak up. You know why? Because they'll get murdered.
And what you're saying to me is that I'm a bad friend and I'm a piece of shit. I'm spineless. I'm cowardly because I am following someone on Twitter.
Because they have mobilized such an insane harassment group. It's not bad enough that I have this group of people harassing me and everyone in my life. It's that people outside of this group, journalists, creators, are actively participating in this gaslighting to make it seem like I'm fucking crazy.
I mean, I don't know what he's getting at here. Like, yeah, people are gaslighting you. A lot of people gaslit me when I apologized. That was actually like the #1 type of harassment I got was people gaslighting me and taking my newfound woke ideology to its extreme.
I've probably done and stood by iDubbbz and Anissa more than anybody. I've stood by them when all the internet hated them.
I don't like that Ethan brought this up because it makes the relationship feel very transactional. Like, you know, we're just meant to support each other online despite our own personal morals or principles.
No. And I think that was the main thing that Ethan actually took issue with. It's not the principles or morals, right? So what Ethan said repeatedly was effectively that I'm getting harassed. There are people who are calling Child Protective Services. There are people who are calling me anti-Semitic slurs. There are people who are calling for my death. There's people who are calling for my wife's death. There's people who are calling for my children's deaths. And so, since you were in the heat of the moment in reference to you kind of quitting your more negative content, and then you were also taking heat because your girlfriend, now wife, had an OnlyFans, it would be nice for you to back me the way that I backed you, right? You don't have to agree with me on everything. You don't have to agree. You don't have to burn bridges. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. You just need to say that this harassment is fucked up and it's too much. Sorry for the F-bomb, Ken and my mother. But that's it. That's all you need to say. And so oftentimes the commentary community has been more, despite having issues with Ethan Klein in the past, they've been more sympathetic to Ethan Klein in this drama as a result of that thing, because the thing that Ethan is asking for is actually quite reasonable. Whereas I think that Ethan and Anissa, not Ethan and Anissa, iDubbbz and Anissa, I forget his real name, but iDubbbz and Anissa have effectively taken this thing where they're like, well, when we were getting canceled, us trying to fight it made it worse. And so as a result, we've put our mental health in other places besides being on the internet. And that's totally fine, by the way. I actually think that's based. I actually think that Ethan would be a mentally healthy person if he did put his mental health not in the opinions of people on the internet, right? Ian, thank you, True Zealot. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I agree with iDubbbz in that respect. I also feel like he's being a bad friend because he's not asking you to take his side completely. He's asking you to just say, hey, the harassment has gone too far. Despite our political and social disagreements, Ethan Klein and Hila Klein are overall good people. Stop doxing, harassing, threatening them. It's messed up. Hippopotamus says, Connor is going to have to deal with an angry Irish mom. This is real bravery. True. My mother, you know, she's ethnically Irish. She's not Irish, but, you know, almost like full-blooded. I think she's probably going to be like a 50-50 mutt between the English and Irish. They, despite their previous hatreds, they did like to sleep together once they got to the Americas. But my mother is a tough lady. She doesn't take flack lying down, right? So she is the kind of person who would, you know, grab me by the ear and wash out my mouth with soap if I said profanity in front of her when I was a child. Now I'm an adult and I'm bigger, so she can't do that to me anymore. but I still try to minimize my profanity around my mom because I remember how hardcore she used to be. Yeah, that even happened in the North. I'm not surprised. My family's originally from Boston.
But I'll say this, I don't think they're fucking any friends of mine. And certainly I don't think they're any fucking friends of mine based on the text conversation I had with them too before I even talked about it. So I have nothing. I don't need any fucking halfway friends, man.
I thought the text conversation that I had with him was very empathetic. I basically just said, like, I know you and Hila are experiencing a ton of harassment, and I essentially empathize with that, and I think there's something positive to get out of the conversation. But he refused to talk on the phone unless I was willing to publicly say something about my former editor and Denims. As much as you don't want halfway friends, I also don't want that kind of halfway friend. I don't want someone who's going to give me like an ultimatum to have a conversation.
Could you not say something when this is like, imagine like one of you guys is like, Hasan actually wants to go to Israel, go to Gaza so he can strangle Israeli babies or some shit like that. I'd be like, you imagine me not saying something.
You're trying to make a one-to-one comparison where there isn't one. This guy that I follow on Twitter is not in the same relationship as you and one of your current employees who is streaming with you 3 days a week, 3 hours a day for the past 10 years. At one point during the stream, Ethan and Hila bring up Adam McIntyre. Now, Adam does basically the same thing as my former editor. He's critical of Ethan and Hila, and he is sometimes uncharitable and nasty towards them.
Adam McIntyre needs to just like disappear. That guy is a piece of shit, like of the lowest order. I never even stood by him when he talked bad about Trisha having a kid and called him like the spawn of Satan. He was supposedly on our side. I would never even co-sign that. I was disgusted by that statement too. I remember when he called her kid the spawn of Satan.
I never said anything.
And I was supposed to be like cheering on, but I wasn't going to cheer that on. That's disgusting.
Why do you forget that he called her children, which is something we would never do, the spawn of Satan?
It's disgusting.
And
a piece of shit of a human.
It's just incredible who ends up being the good guys in this story. You know, it's really something.
Unfortunately, they never made a statement. They never said that they disagree with his statements about Trisha.
So apparently this is inaccurate and untrue, according to commentary, is that they did make a public statement effectively saying, like, stop bullying Trisha Paytas. We think she sucks, but don't bring her kids into it or whatever. That's according to commentary. I think that's according to Nicholas Diorio's chat. I don't know the specifics of it, so I'm probably spreading misinformation on the internet. But, you know, I do want to address chat real quick because we have a few interesting chats. So Hippopotati says Ulster Scots are no less soft. Yeah, I agree. Ulster Scots, believe it or not, you know, I have a very patchwork understanding of history, but I do know a lot. If I remember, the bargain between the Anglo-English and the Ulster Scots was that the Scots, the Ulster Scots specifically, were Scots that were recruited by the English government to be mercenaries in order to fight in Ireland. And so there were Scots from, or that's basically what they did in order to create their culture. And so they said again, because there weren't enough Anglos in order to colonize the New World, they told the Ulster Scots, come be our mercenaries in the New World and you can homestead your own place. So a bunch of Ulster Scots, being effectively the pit bulls of the United Kingdom, were unleashed in the Americas, and they are the ones who conquered like Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, you know, even Florida to a degree, et cetera, where they would go into territories, homestead the territories. They homesteaded those territories with the expectation that the indigenous Native Americans would attack them, and then they would shoot the Native Americans, and that's how the Carolinas, Georgia, parts of Florida, and I think even parts of Virginia were colonized, was because the Ulster Scots were asked to be the pit bulls of the Anglos in the New World. So yeah, Ulster Scots, you can criticize them for working with the English. You can criticize them for being mercenaries for, you know, a authoritarian regime in the 19th century and probably the 18th century as well. But they are tough human beings. I'll put it that way. Big in Gaming says, but by the way, why are Democrats in the news loving Hasan? Makes me not want to vote for them either. Yeah, it's too far left, right? At least in my opinion. The Democrats have to make a choice, okay? They need to say that socialism and communism is a part of the people that they want to attract as a part of the Democrat Party, or they need to say it's not. And they need to make a decision between effectively never Trump Republicans and centristy Democrats or far leftists. Because if the choice comes down to a populist like Donald Trump, or let's say JD Vance, or a socialist, like let's take AOC and Bernie Sanders. I know they're social democrats publicly, but let's face it, they used to say a lot of socialisty things. Let's say that the leader of the Democrat Party is saying a lot of socialisty things, and I have to pick between the two. I'm picking neither, because I do view socialism and communism as the opposite authoritarian of fascism. I just do. I can explain why, but I don't want to bore you to death. But effectively, like, I think socialism gives the government enough power in order to be dystopian and authoritarian in the name of the common good. And that's almost more nefarious than fascism, where fascists are just like, yeah, we're bad guys and we love power. Like communists and socialists will convince you they're the good guys while they do some of the most evil stuff you've ever heard of. Excuse me. What did Gila do exactly? So Gila was an administrative personnel in the Israeli Defense Forces. So she was a person other than Grunt. She wasn't an infantryman, but she previously bragged about going on a patrol either in Gaza or in the West Bank. And so as a result of her bragging about her military service, the leftists have effectively turned that into she's a baby-killing infantry, ethnic cleanser, genocidal maniac. Well, QC John says, so as an ethnic Irish, did you learn where the gold at the end of the rainbow is? No, not yet. I keep chasing it. I never get there. Sucks. Big in Gaming says, well, this was written by Hasan and his orbiters who are blatant liars, so wouldn't be surprised that this is a lie as well. Me either, but I want you to take some of the things. When I hear it from another person, I want you to take it with a grain of salt, right? Silver Dragon Man says a lot settled in Appalachia. That combined with Dutch is why their accent sounds very funny. I'm not surprised. America has enough of the Trump Tower of Fire. Red alert, red alert. Sure. Raymond Smith, sometimes you don't add enough context for me to fully understand what you're saying. So, but I appreciate the comment. Big in Gaming, Grassroots Chachabon says, this is a sides locking down. You are going to see a lot of very strange bedfellows as a response to Trump. Yes. Northern Ireland is a place where Scots descendant people worship a Dutch king and are proud to call themselves British. Historical confusion to the mass. True. True Zealot says, just gesture wildly at the pre-existing systems that have tried. Yeah, I try. Socialists and communists don't find that compelling when you're making that argument. Big in Gaming says there's a clip of communists like Second Thought saying that Hasan is the one who is much softer in language to really groom young people to fall in the communist zeitgeist. Well, Big in Gaming, no offense, but it's kind of true, right? So obviously I've only been streaming full time for a couple of weeks, but if I go on my home channel, I think my max so far is like 110 viewers as far as like since I went full time. And then here, I bounce between like 30 and 50 depending on topic and time of day. So I think that, no offense to, not trying to blow myself up a little bit, but I will, self-glaze incoming. I think I'm more intelligent than Hasan Piker. I think that I'm passably good looking. I'm not the best looking guy on the planet, but I'm okay. I'm okay to look at. I think that I am insightful. I do think I do have a command of history. I do think I do have a lot of experience in the world. And so as a result, I think in a more just world, Hasan's audience would hear a single clip of mine and they would be like, this man's brilliant. We're leaving Hasan and we're all going to go start watching Counterpoints, right? That's not going to happen though, right? And so just through virtue of Hasan having tens of thousands of live viewers daily, hundreds of thousands of post-recorded viewers, and probably millions of fans, I think that does say that Hasan is capable of delivering socialism, communism, and jihadist sympathy in a way that is palatable to segments of the American public. I think we can say that descriptively while thinking it's horrible. Hippopotity says, well, QC John, someone told him the leprechauns were on stream. That is how we got here. True. I'm looking for the pot of gold out here. The Democrats were concerned with the overall culture. They'd grab the Never Trump Republicans. I mean, that would be my recommendation, but that doesn't mean that they listen to me. Democrats listen to me until they don't, right? Big in Gaming had very nice excuse for leftists to stop using their brain and just to fantasize about revolutions that failed, is the way I'm going to translate that comment from Mr. Bombastic. A particularly shiny rock is more intelligent than Hasan Pecker. Is that glazing? It might be. Might be a little bit, right? Because I think I'm a little bit smarter than a shiny rock. Some days. I don't think bringing Hasan and leftists on board will be enough for leftists and tankies to not try to torpedo Democrat candidates. That right there, what Val said, needs to be a part of the political calculus for Democrats, okay? Because the leftists, moderate Republicans, will be happy to have a political coalition that goes against Trump that aligns with them 70%. Leftists are going to ideologically spiral, and if you are insufficiently leftist, they're going to cannibalize you. So that needs to be a calculation in how the Democrat Party forms in the coming years. Well, QC John says, well, Connor is braver than me then. I saw those movies. I know how those pale, freckly monsters can tear stuff up. Jeez. Grassroots Hegemon says, Connor's wife thinks he's hot. We need to knock this bad man. True. On certain days, she thinks I'm hot. On certain days, she thinks I'm the most annoying person on the planet. So that's just marriage, ladies and gentlemen. You love your partner always, and you like them a substantive amount of the time, but there will be days where you do not like the person that you love. It happens. Sometimes I'm mad annoying, and I accept that fact, and she tries to. All right, content. Let's get back into it.
Trish's baby until it's useful. Like, what is it, 3 years later? Like, I mean, you're talking about it like you were aware of it at the time and that there was some amount of pressure or enthusiasm for you to get down with that. And what it sounds like to me is that you did see it at the time and you were like, ooh, I don't like that. And you didn't endorse it and you didn't fuck with it. Huh. It's almost like that is a fucking identical situation to me.
It's just incredible who ends up being the good guys. And
that is a competent point from iDubbbz. I follow on Twitter. Me following somebody means nothing. If you follow me on Twitter, I follow you. I don't check whether or not you follow me back. I don't check whether or not you unfollow me in order to boost your numbers of followers. I don't check any of that stuff. If you follow me, I get notifications that like a few dozen people have followed you, I follow. And so I see tanky scumbags, Nazis, ethno-nationalists, racists. I see, libertarian socialists, communists, furries, porn addicts, all that kind of stuff. The main people that I mute and the main people that I block are either reply guys who don't make points, they just do insults, or they're annoying as hell, or people who retweet porn. If you put pornography onto my feed, then I either mute you or block you, depending on whether or not you post other content. So, yeah. So, like a follow means nothing. So that's where I think that Ethan is overreading into follows. I'm only half of the people. It's all grassroots hegemon alts. But Ethan is reading too much into what a follow means. I agree with iDubbbz on that point, but I do think that Ethan's ask, as far as asking for backup, is not too much, especially if you consider each other friends.
this story, it's really something.
So yeah, the reason I'm bringing this up is because they're trying to like paint themselves as the good guys, and they're saying like, yeah, we strongly disavow things that are said, even about our enemies. We are the most immoral people on the internet, unlike Ian and Anissa, who are fucking.
So Christian Valeris brings up a pertinent question. Why haven't you banned Artemis Fowl yet? Lol, he is both dumb and annoying. Because Artemis Fowl, as annoying as he is, and as much of a reply guy as he is, number one, he helped me find some art for ODST. I asked, what is it? I asked, like, there's a blue skull ODST with a modified M4 hanging out of a dropship art that I saw years ago and I can't find anymore. Can somebody help me find it? Does anybody know where that is, right? And so I do have to go get my son in about 40 minutes. And so he helped me find that art. And then number two, I viciously disagree with him. And I also think some of his arguments are very poor, but he's not just insulting where he's saying, you're dumb, you're a bad person, you have bad friends, you suck, your show sucks, this, that, the other. If you just insult me, I'm going to block you, right? Because I'm not going to argue with you about whether or not I suck. I don't care about your opinion that much. So basically, like, okay, have a nice time screaming in the internet, dickhead, and then I'll just block you, right? Whereas Artemis will actually get into the nitty gritty. He will argue the details of his argument. And so while I disagree with his conclusions, and oftentimes, let's face it, I disagree with his evidence as well, he's arguing the argument. He's not appealing to how bad his opponent is in order to try to trigger people. He's just triggering because, you know, he's abrasive. So Grassroots Chachimon says, I'm easily 50 of the racist, porn-addicted, ethno-nationalist communists that follow color on Twitter. Dude, they made a joke about that on Nicholas Diorio's stream. I watch Nick Diorio, I watch Chud Logic, I watch Queeman for drama content. On Nicholas Diorio's channel, they try to gaslight him into believing that he actually had like brain damage. And so as a result, Frogan, who is a creator that's in this video, didn't exist. And so Frogan was purely a figment of Nick's imagination. And so like, obviously it was just a joke. So he didn't take it seriously, but he pretended to like kind of believe that he was actually so brain damaged that he created like a Lebanese woman in a hijab to hate. It was actually, it was only like a 10-minute bit, but I was laughing pretty hard when I was watching it. It was awesome. Christian Blair says, in the most bad faith way, lol, he is Rob Noor. Well, you know, it's all right. I don't, dude, if I exclusively argued with intelligent people, I wouldn't have anyone to argue with. Like, there's only, genuinely, I've been in Twitch and YouTube politics for like a half decade. As far as creators go, I know he's more of like a chatter or like a reply guy, but as far as creators go, I think I could count on like 2 hands, maybe 3, the amount of creators whose intellect I consistently respect. So yeah. Anyways, all right, I'm being mean. I'm getting distracted by chat, but I do parasocially love my chat. So you know, that's going to happen sometimes. It's going to happen sometimes where I love my chat. I want to talk to my chat. Okay. But moving back into the content.
Keeping to themselves. Also, why the fuck does Olivia get the pass?
What a fucking asshole for putting you in that position, Olivia. You're friends with him. And you don't have to say anything, but like, what a fucking piece of shit. What a bad friend to put you in that position just for some fucking clout. It gets people angry at you, like, oh, how can she be friends with him? Which is total bullshit, okay? Olivia did not do anything. And
I want the pass. Do I have to be an employee to get that treatment? Because then you'll just see me as an ally? Or is it because Ethan is afraid of wrongful termination accusations and lawsuits?
And also, I don't mind putting my friend Olivia, who's apparently my real friend, in a terribly weird, fucking uncomfortable situation where you end up getting hate for no reason.
Also, don't frame it as like other people making it hard on Olivia. You're making it hard on all of these people. Please acknowledge your role in this whole fucking thing.
Okay, I think this is bullshit. And again, sorry for every time I cuss, we're going to apologize to Ken and we're going to apologize to my mom. So sorry, Mom. Sorry, Ken. Sorry for saying a bad word. I think, unfortunately, I'm getting more comfortable with the stream and therefore a few more profane words. I'm also tired and I'm getting sick. But anyways, sorry for the profanity. I think that this is a pusillanimous point. Okay. I think that this is a very weak point. He's saying that by criticizing Hasan Piker for being a terrorist simp, for simping for Hezbollah on stream, for simping for Hamas on stream, for excusing the sexual assaults on October 7, 2023, for what else? Apologizing for the Houthis, for interviewing the Houthis, for sanitizing what the Houthis are doing, which is effectively firing missiles into random commercial vessels. It is actually Ethan Klein, who is making the situation difficult, instead of all the people who are apologizing for terrorism. Like, dude, this is a society, this is a subculture of our society that I actively want to destroy, okay? I do not want leftist, authoritarian, tanky people to hide behind the shield of progressivism in order to make excuses for jihadist terrorism. And that's what iDubbbz, by endorsing Denims, endorsing Frogan, endorsing Hasan Piker, endorsing all these people, that's what he's effectively doing, is he's sanitizing the reputation of jihadist apologists. And so for me, no, I say no. Ethan Klein is not the problem. Ethan Klein is calling out the problem. So don't he's accusing other people of gaslighting and he's using all the psychological language. Don't gaslight me into thinking that Ethan Klein is the problem. He's not. An Israeli guy saying that civilians shouldn't be slaughtered is not the problem. The problem is the jihadist normalization in weird parts of the alternative media left. Sorry, that pissed me off.
Like, it's crazy how warm Ethan is to Olivia and saying how Olivia is essentially just a victim in this whole thing.
It gets people angry at you, like, oh, how can she be friends with him? Which is total bullshit.
But me and Anissa are spineless. Ethan, your whole system is scrambled. My intention isn't to throw the employees under the bus. Like, you guys serve as the fucking foundation for calling out Ethan's hypocrisy on the whole subject. And I know that you guys have probably pushed back against Ethan over the years. How often are you supposed to do that? Do you have to do that every fucking week? It kind of seems like it. And that's exhausting. I don't want to confront my boss. It's not my fucking job to confront my boss and say, today's segment on rapists and pedophiles on Twitch was not my favorite segment to be a part of.
Yeah, friends like these.
Oh yeah, and our other good friends.
Yeah.
Anissa and Ian. Thanks, Anissa, for standing up for your girl. I actually stood up for you so many times because, like, why would I not? It was crazy.
Yeah, why would you not? I mean, if that's truly what you believed and you weren't just going to use it later.
Of course I was going to stand by you. That's insane. It's absolutely insane and disgusting. But now you choose to hang out with people that would have a problem with you if you defended me.
I'm not going to assume that Hila knows, but I'll say it for anyone who doesn't know. Anissa is half Lebanese and half Irish. For anyone unfamiliar, the Irish have been on the receiving end of a lot of oppression and genocide. On the part of the Lebanese, they've received a lot of oppression and attacks from the IDF. So Anissa is very well familiar with the propaganda and the shit coming out of Israel. Choosing now, out of all the times, to be like, please defend me. No, we're not going to fucking defend you.
Rudy was saying that Palestinians are taught at 2 years old to kill Americans.
Do we have that
I
one?
mean,
Like,
just the other day, BB fired a really good guy that a lot of people are pissed about.
He looked mean. I thought he was mean just because.
Israel, iDubbbz, why? Why do you make me defend the state of Israel? Okay. So sorry, I'm going to check in with the last three chats because I appreciate them. So Kay Soko says, well said. Well, thank you. I hope you appreciate my rants. I hope that's why you're here because that's definitely going to be a part of the content. Silver Jacket Man says, dude, I'm the same way. Normally I try to be well-mannered, but when I get tired, the inner sailor comes out. That's happening today. Not going to lie. Hippopotati says, Satan civilians should not be slaughtered. Should be like the most milquetoast take going. And by the way, if you confronted Hasan Piker and you're like, say civilians getting slaughtered is bad, he'll be like, it's bad, but so like there's always going to be the addendum. He's always going to be like, but there's night, and this happened in the you guys should go watch this segment. It's actually insane. On Valor Media, I have a segment covering, who is it? Noah Samson. And Noah Samson says that 97% of civilians support like effectively genocide against the Gazans. And so he's logically leading you to the perspective that you can just kill Israeli civilians. He doesn't say, yeah, it's good to kill Israeli civilians. He just logically leads you to the point at which you can infer that it's a good thing. And so that's one of the things that I really hate about the dog whistling, nose on, nose off. Like, we're going to endorse Bad Empanada, even though he's like a schizo who gets banned from Twitter all the time because he, like, you know, threatens to dox and murder people randomly. So like, they're endorsing Bad Empanada, who's one of the most schizophrenic creators on the planet. And he says crazy stuff all the time. And then they're leading you up to, let's say that Bad Empanada says that there's no such, let's say that he's as crazy as Second Thought, right? Let's say that they both believe that settlers are valid military targets. So you can kill civilian children and women because they're settling in your territory, right? It's okay to kill civilians in their book. They lead you logically up to Second Thought. Like, Hasan leads you logically up to Noah Samson. Noah Samson and Hassan logically lead you up to second thought and logically lead you up to Bad Empanada. And then they let Bad Empanada and second thought take you the rest of the way to the point that you're endorsing terrorism. Like you're endorsing non-state actors slaughtering civilians in order to achieve political ends. That's what they endorse. It's crazy pants. It's crazy pants that this is an accepted part of the far left. It's actually nuts. It's knuckin' futs. Silver Dragon Man says, okay, it's not like she was around for the famine. Not sure you can play the Irish card at this point. Yeah, but if you take away their Irish card, they're going to take away mine too. Gen X says definitely would include a butt. Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, Gallant was the one who said we need to have a plan for the day after the war and was the one who started the drawdown. You're endorsing the right to kill half the world's population of Jews interested to take by them. Yeah, exactly. Grass your Touchmon for $20. Thank you, buddy. I always appreciate you. Ethan Klein is a pretty different guy than I am, but it's very obvious he's a good person and has a spine. It is affirmative moral good that to bully commies as publicly as possible. Ethan can come to the cookout. 100%. I'm with you 100%. It's a part of the left that I hate the most, John says. I agree. So here's the thing. This is supposed to be a news story that shows how bad this guy is. Gallant says Israel can inflict massive damage as UN humanitarian chief says war would be potentially apocalyptic. Israel warns that it can send Lebanon back to the Stone Age as UN seeks de-escalation. You need to understand this. Saying, I can beat the ever-living heck out of you is not the same as actually doing it. What you're doing is you're letting the other person know in that conversation that you have the capacity for violence, and if we go the violence route, I can destroy you. That is what you're saying. Saying I can destroy you is not the same as actually doing it, right? So if he wants to find me more evidence that Gallant is evil, that's totally fine. I don't care. I don't tie my personal value to the reputation of Gallant. I'm just saying they should have picked a different headline if they wanted me to to understand how evil Gallant is.
So they looked at me.
Then hold on. Let's go back. So watch this clip really quick.
To kill Americans.
Do we have that one?
So hold on.
Saying that Palestinians are taught at 2 years old to kill Americans.
Do we have that one?
Like,
so she's saying I mean, and I mean is obviously like you don't agree, but you kind of agree, right? And on this channel last week, or maybe the week before, we were on Memory TV and we were watching the Al-Qassam brigades sponsor a school for like 7 to 12-year-olds to be trained in how to maintain an AK-47, how to do room clearings, and how to do kidnappings. So a 2-year-old can barely walk. A 2-year-old can barely talk. But what the person is probably actually saying is that as soon as Palestinians can talk, they're being taught that Zionist Jews in the state of Israel are evil and deserve to be attacked, and Americans support the state of Israel and equally deserve to be attacked. That might be hyperbolic. That might not be totally true. As a matter of fact, I'm sure there's plenty of Palestinians who are just like, you know what? Every time we go to war with Israel, they jack us up. We should stop messing with Israel. And then every time that we, fight the United States or there's a terrorist attack in the United States, we catch back flack. So therefore, we shouldn't attack Americans. I'm sure there's plenty of Palestinians that think that way. However, saying that the Al-Qassam, I think Hamas got elected into office with like a 55% or a 60% mandate. They haven't had elections since. The support for the October 7, 2023 attacks was like more than 60% in Gaza itself. And so as a result, what's the lie? You can say that they're too young to understand what they're being taught. You can say that not every Palestinian thinks that way. But there's an element of truth that effectively, as soon as Palestinians are born, they're taught to think that Israel is a unique evil that deserves destruction. They're also taught that Americans support Israel and are therefore equally deserving of destruction. Vast swaths of the population. So what's the criticism here? What is the Lebanese? What is Anissa Joma and iDubbbz's criticism of that statement where she goes, I mean, and then shrugs her shoulders, right? Gen X says, going to watch the Sex Pest for a bit, be back, Hasan sucks. Well, Gen X, thank you for the donation. I genuinely do appreciate it. Thank you. I think that's your like third or fourth donation on the channel since we started. Honestly, you know, super chats aren't everything. Obviously, I love talking to you guys in chat, but, you know, money makes the world go around. I'll put it that way. Thank you, Gen X. I genuinely do appreciate the donation. I have to go pick up my child in the next like 20 minutes or so. So I do need to probably, you know, wrap up. But I'm going to continue the segment for another little bit because, frankly, I'm having fun and I'm going to push it to the very end of when I literally need to walk out the door to go pick up my child. Yeah, so let's continue.
The other day, BB fired a really good guy that a lot of people are pissed about.
He looked mean. I thought he was mean just because he looked mean.
No, it's not.
So, yes, you
also, Gallant being mean, if he's a military leader, sorry for yapping again. Just because Gallant might say some terrible things has nothing to do with whether or not he's a competent military leader. So there could be Israelis who are pissed that Gallant's getting dismissed. He could be like Patton, right? Patton for the United States. Patton was an a-hole, right? Patton was rude. He was abrasive. He got people killed. He pushed his army to the brink of what they were capable of. But he gave fire speeches, and he was a competent military leader. So Gallant could be the same way. And by the way, Patton, like, I think he said that after we destroyed Germany, he felt bad that they destroyed Nazi Germany, and he felt like the true enemy of World War II was the Soviet Union. So he'll say, you know, Patton said some crazy stuff. So Gallant could be their version of Patton, where he says crazy stuff, but he's a competent military leader, and that has nothing to do with people having a high evaluation of Gallant. We can research how evil he is later. I don't care. I think my point still stands.
caught us. We're not going to run to your defense when, I don't know, we follow people. We be following. That's one fucked up thing that you can say about Anissa and I is when we're on Twitter, we do be following.
So
the problem.
Okay, if you want to hang out with those people and have no spine and not stand up for another girl that stood up for you, enjoy your new friends.
She's friends with people like Denims.
I know. Yeah.
Which I'll
she's
show.
friends with
Denims is actually participating in this whole child protective service lie.
Yeah.
Which I'll
and if
show
you're
you guys
friends
in a
with
bit.
them, then you're saying what they're saying.
You'll notice that Ethan and Hila start talking about this Denims character. Originally, the complaint was about my former editor. He's been chatting shit about Ethan and Hila for the past year at least. They only care about it now because I guess it was spoon-fed to them via their Reddit that's clearly looking out for them. Now, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, where we are friends with Denims, but I would say it's the same level of friendship that we had with Ethan and Hila. It's like kind of an internet friendship. We think that she's a good person like we think Ethan and Hila are good people. Kind of a tricky situation. How can you possibly think that they're both good people at their core? People can have crash out moments. People can say things that they don't mean. People can say things because they want internet clout and attention. I don't know. I think they're both probably guilty of saying things that they don't mean for internet clout and attention. Right now, one's a little bit more fucking nasty to me than the other.
I just don't see how you can be my friend and also be friends with someone like that.
Well, you can't. So I already forgot about you.
I actually have a lot of friendships that are kind of that way, where it's like, you know, one of the friends doesn't fuck with the other friend, but there is someone in the middle who kind of fucks with both of them, but separately. Yeah, there's a lot of friendships that are like that. I'm not going to make you guys like meet up and kiss or anything. I get it. You guys are in fucking... You're either my best friend who's deep-throating me to the base of my cock, or you are Satan. You're.
This is a common dynamic with a lot of people, and so I don't really have a problem with iDubbbz calling this out, right? So the dynamic is that people are very hot or cold. I love you one day, I hate you the next. I think I'm emotionally mature enough that that's not the way that I evaluate friendships, especially later in life. That's like a teenager, 20-year-old thing. So I think Ethan Klein pointing this out is perfectly fine. I do think that it's lacking context, though. So I think that somebody would have to say it, but I think that Denims, in context of this drama, she watched Bad Empanada effectively say that the kids were poisoned. This is the narrative, okay? The narrative was that the Kleins let dogs poop all over their house. They brought a puppy home who was infected with some kind of virus, who pooped all over the house. And then the kids caught a communicable disease from the feces in their house. And as a result, the entire family got infected with this nasty virus. And so, of course, Bad Empanada is a schizophrenic. So what he was saying is like, ooh, I bet they're like nasty. They don't pick up after themselves. They live in filth. They're disgusting. They're poisoning their kids. They should have child protective services called on them, all that kind of stuff. That's what Bad Empanada was saying. And Denims was uncritically watching that on chat and then like watching that content and then being like, wow, I didn't know this was so bad. I wonder if this is true. And then a healthy chunk of people in Denim's chat were like, yeah, we should call CPS because these children are in danger. And then literally within the week, CPS was called on Ethan Klein. Now, whether or not you can assign that to Denims or whether or not you assign that to Bad Empanada or whether or not you assign it to their chats or whether or not you even care, right? Like I don't care. You know, as a former law enforcement officer, I worked with CPS. You know what happens 90% of the time is if the parents aren't beating the crap out of their child, if the kids have two hots and a cot, meaning that they have a place to sleep and they are getting a couple of meals a day and they are showing up to school, CPS has so many actual cases of like real abuse. They don't care about all the edge cases. They're just like, okay, you have a bed, you have you have 2 meals a day and you're going to school. You're fine. Like literally that's the way that I've seen CPS. Now, obviously I'm in Florida, not California, but still, I have a feeling that CPS is probably overworked all over the country, right? And as a result, they can only care about the truly bad cases of abuse and like sexual abuse and all that kind of stuff. That's enough yapping. Let's get into the content.
Kind of fucks with both of them, but separately. Yeah, there's a lot of friendships that are like that. I'm not gonna make you guys like meet up and kiss or anything. I get it. You guys are in fucking, you're either my best friend who's deep throating me to the base of my cock, or you are Satan. You're the devil.
The last thing I said to Anissa, we were texting before I ever talked about it. She's like, I don't care about this guy. He's a nobody. And, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, then you'll have no problem publicly denouncing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, the conversation ended.
She never replied.
Ethan, you can't even phrase it in a way that doesn't make you sound like you're being coercive and shitty. Well, then you should have no problem publicly denouncing it, right? Does that sound like a friend? It kind of sounds like something a powerful villain would say.
But it was so funny how she immediately went to comment everywhere, like on our subreddit. She immediately had to comment like, oh, he doesn't work with us anymore.
Then
but that was it. That's all she said.
But then say that you don't
Okay. Do you have
agree.
anything else to say for your friends, though?
One of the reasons Anissa was so quick to clarify things in your Reddit is because your Reddit was already talking about who this editor is. And they were spreading misinformation that it was our co-host on our podcast, Uncle Dane. So yeah, the last thing we wanted is this guy getting pulled into this mess, and you guys don't give a fuck. Would it have been nicer and more supportive to say, we don't agree with the things he's saying and we support Ethan and Hila? Sure. Like, yeah, that would have been a nicer thing to say. Our silence means something. It means that we would like to pause this relationship until you figure your shit out. And then maybe we can find a moment in time, I don't know how long it'll be, but a moment in time in the future where things are a little bit easier to broach.
Okay, so Welsh Boy says Yoko Ono. This is a common narrative in the iDubbbz sphere criticism, the drama commentary area. However, I've heard it refuted by people who are way more knowledgeable than me about the drama scene, where iDubbbz, for those of you who don't know, if you're just coming in, et cetera, iDubbbz is a wildly popular creator. Look at that, like 7 million subs. He's got 4.5 million views on this video, although let's face it, half of those are hate views. So iDubbbz used to be a wildly popular, they call it commentary. Commentary is like another word for drama, basically. He used to be a wildly popular commentary creator because he would criticize other poorly acting creators and do so in an aggressive, funny, and abrasive way. And that's how he got really popular. Well, I forget what the exact year is, but effectively he got really edgy with it. And then he looked back at his older content and he was like, listen, this was way too edgy, way too cruel, way too mean, even for me. Therefore, I'm going to become like a progressive and denounce all my previous content, blah, 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 blah. And so a lot of his viewers thought that was lame. And they saw Anissa Joma, his girlfriend, now wife, become increasingly face forward in the content and also more vocal about what's going on. However, Anissa Joma allegedly was there the whole time. They started dating when he was still an edgy boy. They started dating when he was making all the creator content, right? And so while she might be and he might be more progressive nowadays, I don't think the Yoko Ono thing stands up because apparently she was with him during the peak of iDubbbz's commentary career. Like she was part of he's famous for going to, there was a YouTuber who publicly stated that she wasn't racist and bigoted. However, I think it was Tanya Monjow or something like that. She publicly stated that she wasn't bigoted while in the background she was using like the F slur and the N word and all that kind of stuff. And he went to one of her fan meetups and then said, say the N word. And it's like a very famous clip. So, and he says the N word in the clip. And she was shocked and didn't know what to do. And then it kind of brought attention to the fact that she's a hypocrite. So apparently Anissa was a part of that. So I don't know if the Yoko Ono narrative stands up the test of scrutiny. However, Hippopotame says something that I think is actually very relevant, which is with friends like iDubbbz, Ethan sure needs no enemies. Yeah, that's kind of like right here in this clip, I guess. He's saying like, oh, our silence means something. It means that we would like to pause our relationship until you figure your stuff out because you're crashing out right now, bro. It's like, okay, cool. Then I think Ethan Klein is correct in saying that you're a fair weather friend, that when things get tough, you don't have much to say, that you base your political and friendship loyalty based off of what's expedient. And if you can't at minimum denounce the people sending child protective services to their house or doing the violent anti-Semitic stuff in their DMs, if you can't say, hey, like publicly, this is all that Ian would have had to say. Ian is iDubbbz, by the way. All he would have had to say is, I don't agree with Ethan Klein on everything. However, the anti-Semitic DMs, death threats against him and his family and children, and the calling of child protective services to his house is too far. If you're participating in that behavior and you're a fan of mine, please stop. That's all I needed to say, and this would have been squashed. So the fact that instead he's spending an hour talking smack about Ethan Klein, I actually do think indicates that he's stupid. That's my opinion. JetX says, I'm off work today, so I just woke up. I put a good link on Discord of Jon Stewart you might like. Oh, excellent. Excellent. Well, obviously, if I have a 1 p.m. meeting, we're probably just going to need a fight to get through this content. But if we actually wrap up early with this content, then I'll check out that link. Hutch says, I can change him. Well, good luck. Good luck. Welsh Boy says, iDubbbz is a gaslighting backstabber. Well, he's definitely not a front stabber, I'll tell you that. Hippopotame says, was just a lot of type, more or less what Connor just said. Exactly. All right, well, I'm happy we're on the same page. Let's go ahead and continue with the content. I'm gonna lift weights as well. I did legs on Monday, but I haven't done anything else. So I'm going to be doing bicep and back. If you have dumbbells, I invite you to do 3 sets of 10 of normal curls, hammer curls, and reverse curls, and then bent over rows, mid rows, and lower back stuff. Lower back sit-ups, I guess you would call them. If you do, you'll see me doing it on camera. It'll be very small, but you'll see what I'm doing.
I don't think we need to do it right now, but you've insisted that this is an important thing to address. I would have been perfectly fine with you not blasting me on your Instagram story. I would have been perfectly fine with you not blasting me and my wife on your podcast twice. I would be fine with you not brigading my comment section on my podcast that gets 3,000 views a week because I prefer to not do harassment campaigns and instead talk about Vampire's Kiss.
Like they say something like he doesn't work for me, and I strongly disagree, and I support Ethan and Hila. The problem is
that she doesn't.
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
She actually
thinks they have a point.
That's the problem.
Yeah. So go fuck yourself.
I agree.
Go fuck yourself. What about your girl? This is what I'm talking about. This aggression that you're putting out into the world. What the fuck do you think we're gonna do? You think I'm gonna fucking sit on my hands when you do this shit? Like, this is nasty. We had such a fair response to what you guys were going through. We don't support harassment. It's a bad thing, but it happens and you're perpetuating it.
You fucking propagandist, lying scumbag, terrorist supporter. He probably sets up a mirror and jerks off watching himself. Dan KKK Clancy has a similar view of Hitler. Because Dan Clancy, the Nazi, fucking anti-Semite.
You can't expect other people to stop harassing you if you continue to harass people. Let's think about it on a micro level. Have you ever been in a comment section and found someone to argue with? It doesn't stop. It can literally go on forever if you don't want to touch grass.
I mean, yeah, this was kind of like a line, what happened today, that should never be crossed, even by like the most cynical, toxic people. It's going to have ramifications in terms of how I conduct myself, in terms of these fair weather friends who are, you know, so happy to be friends as long as they're getting something out of it.
Ethan, that is a rich thing to say. Like, you're the H3 podcast, okay? There's a lot of friends of the show. There's even more fair weather friends of the show. Let's not get into this shit, okay? That is so bizarre and insulting to suggest that I was only ever being friends with you to get something out of it. No, I'm friendly with you, and I'd say I'm a light friend because it's been pleasant hanging out with you. I've enjoyed your content over the years. And as of late, it's gotten really fucking shitty.
Yeah, so go fuck yourself.
I agree.
Who else? Who else do we want to burn today?
Who else do we want to burn today? You're making it so fucking obvious that this is your emotional dumping ground. It's horrible. This is not what podcasts are. There was a way to approach this to say like, yeah, we feel hurt by you guys not saying something. You've decided to do.
So hold on. There's an element of truth here that I'm okay with, and there's an element that I think is garbage. Okay, so here's my frustration, and I think a lot of other commentary people's communities, their frustration with it as well. So iDubbbz is accusing Ethan Klein of stirring up drama and harassing other people by saying that Hasan is a terrorist supporter. Okay, but we can all watch Hasan Piker publicly sweep for Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthi terrorist groups. And the reason why they're terrorists isn't because they do violence. That's not the definition of a terrorist, in case you thought it was doing violence in civilians getting hurt or killed. It's because the intentional targets of these organizations are civilians. They know they can't win in a toe-to-toe confrontation with armed, trained military security forces. So instead of attacking armed, trained military and security forces, they instead attack civilians in order to get a political message communicated. So they slaughter the innocent in order to communicate their message. Okay? Hasan Piker sweeps for these organizations. So saying that Hasan Piker is a terrorist supporter is just an accurate statement. Then when it comes to Dan Clancy, the main things that point to him being a piece of garbage is, number one, he sweeps for the people who are doing the terror supporting live on stream. He gives them minimal pushback as far as terms of service violations. Then one of the things that Ethan Klein jokes about is him being a nonce, as Chud Logic would say, basically somebody who's interested in under the legal age women, which is an exaggeration, let's be real. But Dan Clancy is like 50, maybe 60 something, and he's the CEO of Twitch. And yet when he opens up the Twitch app, this has happened multiple times on stream effectively. When he opens up the Twitch app, what ends up happening is there's just like really young girl, they call them booby streamers, right? So there's like 19-year-old girls all over Dan Clancy's phone, and that's what he watches all day, which is like crazy pants because the dude is between like 50 and 60. So calling him a nonce is an exaggeration, but still. So publicly criticizing someone isn't harassment. iDubbbz and Ethan Klein have both made their dollars off of publicly criticizing other creators. And so the fact that he doesn't understand the dynamic is crazy. The fact that he categorizes it as harassment is crazy. Plenty of other friends are way more Machiavellian than me. That could be true. Light friend, it was pleasant hanging out with you and you make good content, but the content has sucked recently. Emotional dumping ground. This isn't what podcasts are. Podcasts are emotionally dumping grounds. I'm just going to be real quick, okay? So podcasts are whatever you want them to be. It's people that you like talking about things that you are vaguely interested in. And let's be real, drama, fights between personalities is infinitely more popular than conversations about the Vampire Diaries or whatever the hell they're talking about, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at iDubbbz's own content and let's see what's popular that he's created recently, okay? So we have the content cop about H3. This is publicly criticizing another creator. 4.4 million views. Excellent meme, Mr. President. 500 views. He's publicly criticizing another creator. Is he harassing Donald Trump here? Creator clashes back. 232,000. Pickle, pickle, pickle goose. Another random meme video. 300K. Your body, my birth vessel. And then clearly he's criticizing Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk. So it's very clear that public criticism he doesn't view as harassment, because not only does he still do it within recent months, but then on top, it's his infinitely more popular content, right? So bad unboxing and pickle, pickle, pickle goose, 340K, 232, 737. It's literally 75 to 80%, as much as 95% less popular than criticizing other popular figures, especially other figures that you have a relationship with. So I don't think these views are consistent. That's the main thing that I'm stabbing at right now. This video is literally an emotional dumping ground about Ethan. Yeah, that's another irony of this thing. I'm pretty sure this video ends with him crying to a therapist. This is him at the very end crying. This is his emotional dumping ground. What the heck? Welsh Boy says, it's all total bollocks. Hasan is also friends with these people who were supporting and calling Gila a baby killer. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So being like, oh, you're just, you're harassing all these poor Middle Eastern and North African folk, and they didn't do anything to deserve it. And you publicly criticizing them is akin to harassment. So, these people coming after your children and sending CPS to your house, you guys are just the same. It's like, no, they're not. You can say that Ethan and Hila are inviting some of it through their behavior, like it's a logical result of their behavior. But just because it's logical doesn't make it correct, right? So Chase says, right, lol. You can't accuse someone of emotionally dumping when you are crying to a therapist in your video. Yeah, it's actually bananas. Like I feel like this dude, I feel like he's been rich for too long, so he kind of forgot like how to survive in the wild. He's like a domesticated animal who forgot he forgot how to survive and function as a normal human being. Hoch says, all these people's content has gotten really bad over the days. Ethan is a professional victim. Hasan and company has said super questionable things. Find other people to follow in the community. I mean, subscribe to this channel if you haven't subscribed already. Listen, as much as we cover drama and current political events, there's also a lot of like pro-social content on the Valor Media Network. I might be the most like schizo alternative media, whatever on this channel, but there's really wholesome dudes here who are trying to do like pro-masculine, pro-social stuff. The thing is that being pro-masculine and pro-social, like non-toxic masculine, it's just not as popular as being insane on the internet, and it's not as popular as drama. So anyways, that's enough yapping.
The extra thing and attack. Now, in fairness, I am attacking back, but I feel very insulted and I feel defensive and I feel like I am speaking up for a lot of people who have problems with you and a lot of people who have been on the receiving end of your harassment.
It's so easy to be anti-racist. Everybody's anti-racist. Racism is the worst thing in the world, right? We fucking hate racists. Fuck racists.
Microaggressions.
The minute that they actually have to stick their neck out
for somebody, the minute they have to actually risk something to put themselves in under scrutiny, to sacrifice something personally to stand up for racism, then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I don't want to get involved.
And that's drama.
How much do you care?
I don't do drama.
How much do you actually care? If you're, isn't that the whole point? Like,
I realize that Ethan and Hila are more scared now than they've probably ever been. I feel like anti-Semitism is a thought in their heads now more than ever. And it's not completely unjustified to be thinking about that sometimes. You guys are just hurt and you're kind of like dancing around and making very like loose, poorly thought out analogies for something that doesn't even apply to us. It's like me making this video is the standing up for something, and it's saying, fuck you, you guys are being bad. You know, I don't think you're bad people, but you're being bad. You're behaving poorly. You're hurting people.
I mean, go back to the civil rights. You think that the people who are like the white kids who are protesting with the black students, you think that they were just like not risking anything? Those kids who are marching with the black students and...
So in Ethan's analogy, he's the black student and I'm the white student, but I'm the white student that's not, you know, marching by his side. I'm not doing the difficult thing. You're going to have to march on your own, black student.
Marching with the black students and...
I mean, why is it inspiring?
That's funny.
Why is it inspiring?
Well, and it's the same thing, to bring it back to Hassan just because, but it kind of is the same thing. Like, I was thinking about going to Gaza until I found out it's dangerous. He's a total performative activist that doesn't give a single fuck about the cause.
It's been performed exquisitely. Harassing one person and seamlessly transitioning into harassing another one. If anyone's been watching for the past fucking year, I'm pretty sure they have a good idea of your feelings about Hasan.
Like people like Anissa are the perfect example because she's friends with these people. She's friends with DenimsTV. DenimsTV is streaming this story about our kid
I'll show that, yeah.
getting Giarda from the dog, whatever.
I'm sorry, I'll accept this position from anyone except you guys. You have laid the groundwork for this type of streaming, which is watching people's shit and giving your unfiltered reaction to it. Why would you expect Anissa, of all people, to say something to DenimsTV? Okay, so by that logic, we should be saying shit to you guys all the time. But I have a feeling you guys wouldn't like if we said shit like that to you all the time. Yeah, we've been respecting you as independent content creators. You can do what you want. We'll treat you as adults. Maybe we shouldn't have been treating you as adults.
She could say so much and it would make her a little bit uncomfortable, right? It's not comfortable. She'll get a little bit of shit.
Yeah, just for
But
saying
that would be commendable.
So I'm going to pull something over here because they're talking about Frogan and they're talking about DenimsTV when they're talking about lefties who have done and said psychotic stuff, and Anissa and Anissa and Ian haven't done anything. So this is one of the people who's in the videos, okay? Exciting news. Twitch has chosen me to be featured as a legendary woman on the front page. Together for Legendary Woman front page carousel, not just for March, for the entire year. This was March 1st, 2024, which was after the October 7th, 2023 attacks. And this was her reaction to hundreds of people getting massacred at the music festival north of Gaza. Leftists preach and foam at the mouth at the thought of a revolution happening in America, but as soon as it happens in the Middle East, what they're doing is wrong. Yeah, listen, I'm going to go ahead and say this, Frogan. Hot take. I understand that like your sympathies to the Lebanon and your sympathies to Palestine aren't going to allow you to understand this, but shooting unarmed men and women, assaulting them sexually, and then murdering them is wrong regardless of context. That's bad. You shouldn't do that. Just in case anybody was wondering whether or not you should murder unarmed civilians, the answer is no. And whether or not you should sexually assault them, the answer is also no. I know that was unclear to a lot of the pro-Hamas specifically group, but that's wrong, no matter the surrounding context, okay? Military forces, armed forces can operate against each other. And also when it comes to civilians, you probably shouldn't massacre them. I know that's like a wild take, but, you know, apparently it needs to be explained to Frogan and her ilk, okay? So criticizing that, and this drama partially started because Ethan Klein saw those tweets on October 7th, 2023 and unfollowed Frogan. Frogan freaked out. And then that became the battle lines drawn between what's effectively, I'm going to call them pro-Hamas Twitch streamers and Ethan Klein, right? So Noah Samson, who is in this video, sweeps for terrorist organizations. Hasan Piker sweeps for terrorist organizations. DenimsTV sweeps for terrorist organizations. Frogan sweeps for terrorist organizations. So the fact that we even have to play this shell game of they're just anti-genocide, they're just anti-Israel is BS. It's baloney. It doesn't stand up to scrutiny. And iDubbbz acting like the people he's currently palling around with in this video are infinitely less nefarious than they actually are is kind of like, it speaks to the fact that he's either not paying attention or he's genuinely dumb or he knows and he agrees with them. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure he said something where effectively to the tune that he does agree with them.
And by the way, it kind of speaks for itself that saying, hey, their house is claimed, they're, they're actually good people, like that's going to get you shit. That kind of says it all, doesn't it?
There isn't a single person that I respect who would give a fuck if I publicly said that Ethan and Hila are great with their kids, Ethan and Hila didn't kill their dog, and Ethan and Hila wipe their asses or don't have giardia or whatever the prompt is. No one would care. The only person who would care is me, because I'm like, why did I tweet this out? I'm not tweeting out because I'm not your fucking lapdog. That's why I'm not tweeting it out. I'm not saying it to my audience because I don't give a fuck. It's not my business.
That's, in my opinion, doing something that's
Yes, it
difficult
does.
and standing by your principles. That's the whole point. That's what makes standing by your principles admirable, is that it's not always easy.
Why are you?
Sorry, let me explain this real quick. And I think I've explained it earlier in the stream, but I'll try to be very brief. The situation was, there's a schizophrenic who doxes people, and his name is Bad Empanada. He's legitimately like a psycho who has stalked and harassed tons of people. And the leftists originally, all the pro-Hamas leftists, were like, this dude is too schizo, we can't screw around with him. Since this has happened, they've used Bad Empanada as their attack dog, where Bad Empanada will say all of the schizo things that they can't quite say without getting in trouble. They will then react to Bad Empanada's content, and they'll be like, ooh, I don't know about that. I don't know if that's true. But they'll be platforming those ideas to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. And so as a result, this did happen. CPS was called because Bad Empanada went in public, and these people are platforming and playing footsie with this guy. And he said that the dogs got giardia, which is like a fecal-based disease. The kids got giardia, which means that the dog was exposing their feces to the kids. Effectively, Ethan Klein lives in filth, lives in dog's feces, and he's allowing his children to be infected with a dog-related disease. Therefore, Child Protective Services should be called. DenimsTV uncritically platformed that. Now, the question is whether or not she did that intentionally. I legitimately think she might be so stupid that she just watched the video because she's a moron and didn't even think to, like, I don't know, critically analyze what was going on as far as content goes. But at the same time, when you have the pro-Hamas lefties platforming that thing, that results in what is effectively the government showing up to Ethan Klein's house, I actually think it's relatively easy if you're a person of good conscience in order to say, yeah, that's messed up, and DenimsTV, that's messed up. You shouldn't have done that. Bad Empanada, you're a schizophrenic and nobody should be screwing with you. Hasan, you should stop platforming Bad Empanada. And if I had to guess, Ethan Klein's suspicion and my suspicion as well is that this lefty sphere of pro-Hamas content creators, they are, like, at least Hasan specifically, they are in good with the Twitch aristocracy, who are the richest and most viewed and most paid streamers on Twitch. And so as a result, Ian doesn't want to rock the boat with the Twitch aristocracy and with Hasan Piker. So he knows that if he piped up, he would get in trouble with that crowd.
Are you saying that I'm not standing up for my principles when you don't even know what they are? I get, like, we're a little bit past directly naming me, so we might have gone off on a tangent. If you maybe accepted the phone call and we talked about it, you could have asked me, hey, what are your principles? And I can tell you the way I've been behaving is exactly in line with my principles. Now we're going to talk about the BDS list. We're going to start off with Frogan because obviously this is like as bad as it gets. If you're following Frogan, that can only mean that you're anti-Ethan. Oh, this is not a good start. Love of the H3 podcast. You are following Frogan, so that means that you are anti-Ethan. Sam, Morg Pie, friend of the show. Olivia, Ian, Daily Dose of Internet is anti-Ethan. Jesus, this is fucked up. Pokimane, comment etiquette. Oh shit, Asmongold's in here? Asmongold follows Frogan? No, Asmon. That means you're anti-Ethan. That's fucked up. We're going to want to avoid these creators at the top of the list, but one tier below them are the creators who associate with them. They're essentially endorsing all of their statements. You got me, you got Anissa, I think Hasan's in there. You'd think that Hasan would be on the top of the BDS list, but that's not the case. Hasan provides additional value for people. Ethan can turn a blind eye to people collaborating with Hasan because that's what he did. You got to be the lowest of the low to be associating with the Frogans and the Denims of the world. To associate with Hasan, that just makes sense because he's famous and he's got a massive fan base. Also, Ethan still follows Hasan on Instagram, so Hasan is in his feed.
And that's showing up right up on Anissa's and iDubbbz feed.
It's important.
Yeah, so this is an appeal to pragmatism, and I'm okay with it. I just think that iDubbbz is pointing to hypocrisy where there isn't necessarily any. Number one, I mentioned this. I follow for follow. I don't track who follows me or unfollows me after I follow them. I don't track any of that stuff, frankly. You follow me, I follow you back. That's as simple as my Twitter profile is. CounterConnor, if you want to check it out. COUNTERCONOR. I did mention that the one thing that I will kind of like block and mute for and all that kind of stuff is if you're retweeting porn, like pornography, onto my main news feed, then I'm going to either mute you or block you. If you post other stuff and I think you're funny and interesting, I'll go ahead and mute you. That way I'll bump into your content on occasion. However, if like your profile is constantly retweeting porn, then yeah, like that and furry stuff, I'm going to block you eventually. So anyways, that's the way that I manage Twitter. So he's pointing out the shell game. I follow people I dislike, right? I think I follow JD Vance right now. I think I follow the White House account. I think I follow a few things. And the reason why I follow them is because I want to keep up with their bad opinions effectively. Will Chamberlain, who's somebody who's been associated with Charlie Kirk, he's popping up into my feed all the time because he's saying really gross things, frankly. And so as a result, a follow doesn't mean anything. And again, he's avoiding the dynamic that's actually being called out, which is it's not that you're following people. Nobody cares about that. What's going on is your friends, when you were in the muck and the mire, they went to bat for you. They're in the muck and the mire, and you are playing footsie with leftists who in turn play footsie with Hamas, a terrorist organization, and also play footsie with Bad Empanada, who is a schizophrenic doxer who lies about stuff all the time in order to hurt the people that he's targeting. That's the problem. So I'm going to let this play for the sake of completion or completeness. However, I feel like this is dodging the actual point of what's going on.
Important to remember that this is a living document and people can be removed or put onto it depending on how Ethan's feeling that day. You have this other tier of creators that exist below Hasan but are still anti-Ethan, but Ethan really doesn't want to bring your attention to these ones because it's kind of unpopular, you know? A lot of them are famous. It's no coincidence that Ethan stays silent when these powerful, popular men are supporting Hasan. It's because Ethan is a coward. He's a bitch-made coward. I think Ethan has an unreasonable amount of respect for these comedians because they have power, they're quick, and I think he knows that they don't fuck with his ideology. But he's going to keep that to himself because the last thing that he wants to discover is that people that he respects and looks up to, they don't fuck with him.
Bill Burr came on. It was like the worst fucking show. It was just horrible. That was like my lowest moment on podcast history. We could talk about Bill Burr, ruined my life. Bill Burr made Ethan go on Lexapro. I was prescribed it and it was in my bedside. And then it was the Bill Burr episode that made me finally start.
When Stavros goes on Hasan's stream and he mocks your content nuke.
I actually saw a really interesting video about you, man. And I don't know that I'm even comfortable being here anymore.
Oh, no.
It really kind of shed light on you in a way.
Yeah.
So Sean Kaplan says, "Good morning, video. Bad morning, Connor." Listen. I get that. You know, you're drinking your coffee, you're waking up, and we're reviewing silly drama almost immediately. I get it. But let's face it. The people love drama, okay? I'm sorry, Sean Kaplan. I'm sorry to ruin your morning. However, Stavros is making a joke about the content nuke Hasan, where he's saying, like, I don't even know if I want to be here anymore because you're such a bad dude. And Hasan's taking it like in good cheer, where he kind of knows that Stavros is screwing with him. Stavros, by the way, if I remember correctly, I think he's a character on Tires, which is like Shane Gillis's show. So not only is he a comedian, but he also like acts in a show for like a very, very, very popular comedian. So Stavros probably has like rich and powerful friends, and he might be, I don't know if he's rich himself, but he might be, you know, successful in the comedy scene effectively. And so he's screwing with Hasan. But I kind of got to ask the question, you know, why are you still fucking with Hasan? Now, it's probably like, despite his terrorism support, you still think he's like funny, charismatic, he has a big audience, it's easy to expose yourself to that audience, et cetera, et cetera. But that's pragmatic. That's related to power. That has like nothing to do with Stavros's individual morality. As a matter of fact, I would love to hear Stavros articulate his perspective on the Israeli-Palestine conflict and see if it's not like 14-year-old 70 IQ analyses of like war is bad. As a matter of fact, that's what I would expect out of a comedian. So anyways, sorry if I sound out of breath, but I am lifting weights in the background. So the question is like, why is that not enough? But I'm gonna go ahead and be real. If there's an opportunity, let's say that we get bigger, and Hasan Piker is like, yeah, I'm sick of not being a debate bro. All these debate bros mischaracterize me. I'll talk to anyone about this specific topic. And it's a topic that I disagree with him on. I'm going on that show. It's the same thing. Like, I can dislike you. I can hate you. I can think that you're immoral. I can think that you're bad. And I can go on your show and I can probably tactfully tell you why I think you're wrong while still being relatively polite. And it's not because I'm trying to win you over. It's because I'm trying to appeal to your audience to get them to change the way that they think about things. Same thing with Tim Pool. I went on Culture War a few weeks ago, and Tim was like, yeah, you know, you can come back, do another show, blah, blah, blah. I had a good time, blah, blah, blah. Which obviously he might just say that to anybody that he's like vaguely, you know, nice to. I'm sure he'll probably forget I exist. And, you know, he probably already forgot I exist, right? But they did give me Lisa the Booker's phone number for coordinating. And she also said, oh, yeah, it was great to have you. You know, we'll have you back whenever, blah, blah, blah. I did text them this morning and I said, hey, you're talking a lot of smack about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. There's some real stuff there, but I would love to debate it. And so I texted their booker. So just because I viciously disagree with someone doesn't mean that I'm not going to go on their platform, and doesn't mean that I'm not going to be polite. Because again, it's not about the creators. Some people care about the creator relationships. I kind of care a little bit. I think it's the nature of the business. But at the end of the day, we're not competing to change the minds of every creator we encounter. We're competing to change the minds of the people that creator appeals to. So yeah. Dude Mansu says he's just doing it for the same reason he went on Rogan. He's just selling himself to grow his audience as entertainers do. Dude Mansu, exactly. You said it in 3 sentences where I took 2 minutes to explain it. You should be the streamer. Working Bob says, not going to lie, glad you are streaming so much now. Gives me something to listen to in the background while I'm at work. Hopefully we can keep this thing going. Well, thank you, Working Bob. Please remember, not just Working Bob, but everybody in the stream, please remember to like the stream. That way other people know that we're live and they can join us. If you have money burning a hole in your pocket, go ahead and do a donation or a super chat. If you want to become a YouTube member, I don't know if we've turned on memberships yet, but we will shortly. And then just in general, engage with the VODs, right? You know, cumulatively, you know, if you don't have money, that's totally fine. Or if your 401k took a 50% hit, don't worry about it. But just watching the VODs, you know, that stuff is cumulative. It adds up over time. So anyways, how does the boot in your mouth taste? I don't have one. Can you see my mouth? Hold on, I'll zoom in. I'll get a log going. Where? This is my mouth. Where's the boot? Dumbass. Log, say something productive or you're getting banned. Anyways, let's continue with the content.
You kind of like have leftist politics and stuff like that, and I actually feel betrayed.
Yeah,
and so I'm actually just here to let you know this is the last time I'm ever coming.
You don't fire
Instead of saying something productive, he said, wow, got me. Bye. Everybody say goodbye to Log. Bye, Log. Have a nice day.
Her back because you're coping. So you're just going to tuck your tail between your legs and never mention on your podcast that mentions everything. You're bringing up some fucking connection I have on Twitter. Someone mocks you on a stream. You're not touching it. Fuck you. You're a coward. It's just his job. It's just what he does for his job. You know, he doesn't mean it. We're actually good friends. You know, he makes fun of everyone. It's not just me, right? Oh, also, I can't forget about Matt Lieb. Matt Lieb is in this like middle tier. His valuable association is Rhett and Link. So Rhett and Link, conveniently, are also in this category of popular and powerful men who Ethan does not want to burn bridges with. Although he's sniffing around.
This guy, Matt Lieb, he works for Good Mythical Morning. Of all people, this guy, Matt Lieb, who apparently is a producer for Good Mythical Morning. Well, this guy works for Good Mythical Morning, acting like he's wholesome, and he's bringing on somebody that wants to kill my wife or in a video game. And I think he should be fired, frankly. And I hope he is fired. He's pathetic. And he interviewed basically a terrorist.
I think Ethan only respects power right now, which is one of the reasons I made this video in the first place, is because he thinks I'm weak. He thinks a lot of these other creators that he's gone out of his way to attack, he thinks that they're weak, and he thinks they're a target that he can bully, he can manipulate, he can send lawsuits to. And I want him to know that we're not going to be bullied. You're being a piece of shit, and we're going to call you out.
So here's the button.
Whoa, this is getting anti-Semitic, huh? He's accusing a Jew of using law and money and power in order to silence his critics. Jeez, Ethan. I thought he was just talking smack on the internet. Razzle Smasher says, good morning, Connor. Any thoughts on the Hasan Dan Saltman Diddy saga? All right, we'll do it. So for those of you who don't know, this is kind of breaking. I don't know if it's going to be anything relevant. Let me find Dan Saltman. Dan and I are not friendly. However, I respect the hustle, all right? He follows no one. That's crazy pants. This must be an old one. Where's the new Dan Saltman? Hasan Piker, Diddy. Sorry if I'm looking for it. But effectively, Hasan Piker went to a Diddy party. It's kind of funny because he doesn't really admit to anything too bad, but he does admit going to a Diddy party and then seeing like some pedo adjacent stuff. And then he's like, oh, that's weird. And then he didn't talk about it anymore. So hold on. Remind me to never get on Dan Saltman's bad side. Saltman found clips of Hasan speaking about Diddy as if it was a normal thing to go to the rapper's parties. Reminder, Hasan was a notorious club promoter in the LA area before streaming. So watch this. So it's pretty funny because Destiny, like all of Hasan's audience has said, oh, Steven, he's such a sex pest, right? Because let's admit it, if it's true, Steven spread homemade pornography without the consent of other people involved, allegedly, and then also allegedly consensual sexual encounters without the permission of the other people involved, and then spread those audio recordings. Okay, those are the allegations. So Hasan Piker, his audience has been calling Steven a sex pest for like months now. And here's a tweet from Hasan. I would love to hang in Diddy's Ciroc entourage and trickle down bang anything thrown his way. Gross. Number one, just gross. The fact that you would even say that out loud in public, disgusting.
Me and my girlfriends are going to this. P. Diddy party, and I was like, okay, you can go. You can go. I'm breaking up with you. So I broke up with her over the phone. Then and there. That was probably one of the worst ways I've ever broken up with someone. I was like, no, you can go. Like, have fun. We're no longer dating. I was in fucking traffic, too.
So I have a suspicion. I don't know if that was Jacqueline Griffith, but Jacqueline Griffith was a pornographic actress that Hasan Piker dated for a while. I know it's super quiet. My apologies, True Zealot. But it basically says that he had a girlfriend who went to a P. Diddy party. or was saying that he was or she was going to a P Diddy party, and he broke up with her on the spot because he knew what a P Diddy party was, which is effectively an orgy, right? So there's an orgy and there's weird pedo shit going on in the background. So I think this might be the clip where he talks about weird pedo shit. So let's listen to this real quick.
I walked into this like back like sphere Epcot looking thing in the back of like the house that P Diddy was renting for his and was throwing after parties at Coachella, and they were playing like these crazy things for people who are high. Not me, of course. I had only eaten portobello mushrooms, and one of the images that they were playing was like this little girl, this like supposedly attractive, very young girl, like opening up a Christmas gift. And I think I told you about this, where I was like, this is some real weird Alex Jones style pedo thing here. I walked into this like back like sphere Epcot look.
Yeah, so that's the first one. Let's see if Dan Saltman has any other clips.
Oh my god. Oh my god, dude, that would be so sick. Yo, I know Diddy's into stuff like that 100%. He does like crazy stuff like that.
I feel like if you fucked enough, it's like you kind of want to do some shit like that.
Oh my god.
So he basically knows that Diddy is a pedo.
Me and my girlfriends are going to this.
Okay, all right, cool. So the thing about it is, it's not so much what he admitted to, right? Because he didn't say like, oh yeah, you know, I hooked up with like this really young looking girl. I don't, you know, Hasan doesn't know, you know, he didn't say any of that kind of stuff, right? So it's not really, you know, it's not really like a quote that you can specifically assign to Hasan Piker, right? However, he did go to a P. Diddy party where there was weird pedo stuff going on, and he knew enough about what was going on in order to break up with his girlfriend the second that she said that she was going to a P. Diddy party, because it was effectively an orgy. And so as a result, we can all forget about Artemis as a talking point, right? Hasan Piker went to a brothel. The brothel got broken up for like sex trafficking and tax evasion and being associated with the Hells Angels motorcycle club. And he obviously had allegedly consensual sex with a brothel prostitute. We can ignore all of that, right? Because Hasan went to a P. Diddy party, knew there was pedo stuff going on, and didn't really do much about it. So effectively, all of the things can still stick to Stephen Bennell if you want to criticize him for his sexual indiscretions. But you can also now, if you're a DGGer, this is perfect. Whenever somebody is a Hasan Piker simp and they're bringing up Destiny's sexual indiscretions, then at minimum you can reply with, yeah, well, at least my favorite streamer didn't go to a P. Diddy party. Boom. You instantly call Hasan Piker a pedo, and it's factually true. So brief little drama aside, but anyways, let's continue. But that's probably going to be a meme that I would say, if there's more fuel to the fire, it's going to spread a little bit more. And then if there's no fuel to the fire, it's not going to spread that much further. However, it will be a useful tool in DGG's box as they go forward. Diddy Piker. It's catchy. It works. Yeah, Jonah Boy, exactly. So you could literally just say, oh yeah, Destiny's a sex pest, but at least he's not Diddy Piker. Boom. Harmonic Fox is my favorite streamer, didn't do either of these things. Well, Harmonic Fox, if you're talking about me, I haven't done anything nefarious since I was 25 years old, which is 12 years ago. My nefariousness was being like kind of, I'll just say it, promiscuous when I was a young person with consent of other young people. And I didn't like the way that I conducted myself in those relationships. And I regret a few things that I did that were not polite and not nice and not kind. That's pretty much it. So, and I've been married for 12 years. So whatever my indiscretions were when I was like, I don't know, 17 to 25, all the bad things that you could accuse me of. Number one, I feel like they're effectively everything that every other young man went through, especially at that time. And then since 25, so let me do some math for you real quick, chat. I've never been to a P. Diddy party, and I've never shared homemade porn without consent. So I'm actually squeaky clean compared to the rest of Twitch. So let me do some math. I haven't done anything remotely criticizable sexually since 2012. And the things that you could criticize me for was effectively what everybody else was doing when they were young and stupid. So, congrats, guys. Congrats to the 50 people cross-platform who are on the stream right now. You are currently watching someone who has no sexual impropriety accusations. All right, back to the content. Back to the content.
You've got a video and you've got an audio. We're hitting both.
This is so lame.
Yes.
There's no point.
Let's leave.
Yeah, there's no need.
Yeah.
I don't want to. Oh, shit. Like, how pathetic are you? Don't worry if you don't have it all now. I don't like pedophile. Like the Eye of Sauron. I see you. I see you out there, you fucking cockroach. You'll be living with your parents for a lot longer than me.
Oh, dude, we get the point. Oh, my God. Ugh, dude, took forever.
Now let's talk about the button. Ethan got this button, or kill switch, as a response to the controversy with Cutie Cinderella. He was not able to control himself in that moment, and instead of figuring out how he can change his behavior, he spent $20,000.
Dan and Ela were like, we would kill button that right now if we could. I can't change who I am.
I know. That's why the kill button is on its way.
That's it. See, exactly.
He uses the button for everything. If his jokes don't land, he's hitting the button.
It was being presented as if the Jordan crying thing.
I hit the button.
Why?
I don't think I needed to, but you guys were giving me crickets, so I panicked.
If he's insecure about getting something wrong, he's hitting the button.
But okay. What? Button for that? What on this frame could Ethan have responded to? Perhaps the country flag that he got wrong? Maybe. I don't know.
If he goes on a problematic tirade, he's hitting the button.
Before, look how sad. But yeah, it's not just that. Like their eyes are like big. I think you guys are wrong on this one. I think you guys are all wrong on this one.
I don't think he's unique in hitting the button. I think if all of us had buttons, we'd hit the button all the time. But if you don't have it, you operate differently. You think about what you're saying. You maybe plan for your show a little bit more. You maybe say, I'm not going to have my podcast be an emotional dumping ground for today. You instead say, ooh, it's important that we stay on.
Can I fast forward? Can I? Because I don't care about this, right? Philip Coffey says that's an accomplishment in and of it by itself. I'm assuming having like 13 years of like normal, morally unobjectionable conduct, relational conduct. Yeah, I think it's an achievement as well. For the love of God, please. Okay. Yeah, so I'm not fast forwarding this because I feel like I'm dodging a point. I'm fast forwarding this because I think it takes him 10 minutes to say like, Ethan Klein says edgy and rude things. If you don't care, then why are we watching? Well, I don't know what I said if I don't care. I'm saying I don't care about this specific segment. I don't feel like this argumentation is particularly compelling. Obviously, the reason why we're watching it is because it's drama content that's vaguely aligned to politics, and it's large creators. Therefore, we're going to have a larger live audience, and therefore, we're going to have a larger post-recorded audience. That's why. But the specifically this segment, I don't find compelling. Connor is dodging a pointless point. True. Does the button kill people when Ethan presses it? Hopefully it kills Hamas supporters every time he hits it. So the button game would be what would it be? It would be like every time you press this button, it cuts 30 seconds of your podcast out, but a random Hamas supporter drops dead. That's why Ethan was hitting it so much. That would be bad with all the times he just pressed it. Yeah, like, dude, who cares? Like, seriously, who cares? So the point that's being made is that Ethan Klein is a reckless, abrasive, impulsive human being who says crazy stuff. And that crazy stuff, by the way, got him rich, but if he was more mature, then he wouldn't need to have a button in general. And therefore, the button enables him to be more impulsive and rude and abrasive and gross. I don't think anybody cares. I don't care. I don't think anybody in his audience cares. So I am going to fast forward. Yeah. And then Hippopotame points out the other part of this, which is effectively that you can screw up all the time saying crazy, edgy stuff. And so as a result, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to fast forward a bunch. This is Ethan Klein saying the B word on stream. And so as a result, some female audience members and guests say that he should stop saying it. And so he does temporarily, but then goes back to saying it. Hold on. Let's check and see if this is still button related real quick. Let's see if this is button related.
Use they get access to cover most of it.
Doing it. What are you doing?
Okay. So still button stuff. Dude, literally 10 minutes talking about how Ethan Klein sometimes says edgy stuff on his podcast and therefore has to self-censor. This is something that Chud Logic said, by the way. Would you prefer that he doesn't self-censor? Would you prefer that he just says the edgy thing that is potentially within TOS but would be upsetting to his audience? What's the alternative, right? K-Soko says, good morning, Officer Rhino. Well, good morning to you. It is a great morning because I'm working out and I'm hanging out with, 50 of my best friends and family watching some content. So, hold on. Are we getting away from the button now? I'm looking. Okay, this might be getting away from the button. Let's see if we're getting away from the button. For a video talking about a button, it's not very buttoned up. Good one, Hippopotame. Oh, geez. All right, let's see if we actually got back into any criticism remotely reflecting reality.
A sex criminal, a murderer, shit like that. Dan Clancy now, in other words, he is a pedophile.
You have so much less to go off of saying that than anybody has about
based
Dream.
on his looks. Just on his based on his
Well, at least you're self-aware.
That's 100% a joke. I have no evidence to conclude that he is.
One of the more notable.
Okay, and let's see if we can get into the content from here. So the main indictment against Dan Clancy being a nonce, as Chud Logic would say it for terms of service purposes, is that Dan Clancy has opened up his phone multiple times to Twitch, and the thing that is on his homepage consistently is 19-year-old girls in very revealing outfits, and Dan Clancy is like, I don't know, 50, 60? Let's take a look. Dan Clancy is the CEO of Twitch, by the way. And the reason why, age, CEO, Twitter. He was born in 64. We're going to do some math real quick. 2025 minus 1964. The dude's 61, okay? So he's 61 years old, and he's watching softcore pornography of his alleged employees. Somebody points out, Boater254 says Dan Clancy is their boss. I mean, in a way, he is. And, you could make the argument, well, these are the most popular streamers on Twitch, therefore he should follow all the biggest ones. Those are all arguments that are perfectly fine if you want to defend Dan Clancy. But I'm just saying that if I was a 61-year-old man, I would probably be, I don't know, I might be dating someone my junior, but I wouldn't expect to be dating someone my junior who is a third of my age, and then also constantly looking at people a third of my age. That's the criticism where Ethan is calling him a nonce, effectively. Jack-o'-lantern says there is a part of the button section you should watch because of how awful the point he's making is. It's where one time the button doesn't work and he mildly criticized one of his employees. Yeah, I remember that. So I think that iDubbbz, Ian, he actually needs to get his testosterone levels checked, because there's a moment where he's trying to press the button, he doesn't press the button, and then he's talking to one of his employees and he's like, hey, that segment was screwed up because of X. and we can't be doing that, and I need you to like do it better, blah 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 blah. And he's kind of being like, I don't know, verbally abrasive, but not entirely rude. He's not cussing out his employee or telling him that he should die or anything like that, right? He's just saying, you screwed something up. I don't want it to be screwed up in the future. You need to fix it. This is a reoccurring problem. And Ethan Klein acts like this is the worst thing in the world. And I swear to God, it is a testosterone issue where with the hormone testosterone pumping through your body, you can disagree with people and it doesn't feel like a personal attack. Whereas sometimes I feel like with men in particular who have very low testosterone, they feel like disagreement is a personal criticism. So, you know, we got to dial that in, right? Not every disagreement is a personal criticism. That's actually something that I need to work on. Sometimes I'm just going to say it. You know, sometimes my wife and I will be fighting about something and then I'll be like, oh, you know, you're implying X. And she's like, I'm not implying X. I'm talking about Y. And I was like, yeah, well, you still are. And I kind of do that just to win the argument because I'm being a smartass. But I think I need to be better about that as well. If I'm noticing soy boy behavior in other people and then I recognize that I might be doing a milder version of it, I think I need to avoid that behavior. So I think I'm going to avoid that behavior going forward. I'm just going to deal with what's being said instead of an inference that I'm making off of what's being said. Boater254 says, I'm saying it's disgusting that he is their boss. Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about Ethan for a second, but you're talking about Dan Clancy. Oh, 100%. Yeah. Do you want your 60-year-old boss watching you in lingerie? Now, I mean, I would say that's part of the risk of being in lingerie at work in the first place. However, I do agree that just because you're, you know, a provocative person who's putting on a sexual show, a softcore sexual themed show, doesn't mean that it probably can't be off-putting to have people triple your age watching you. So yeah, I don't criticize. Like if you're 50 years old and you like booby streamers and you're alone and you're single and you're unable to get a girlfriend or a wife, it is what it is. You do what you got to do in order to survive. However, if you're like a successful multimillionaire, a chief executive officer of a multi-billion-dollar company, then maybe staring at 19-year-old girls all day in lingerie is not good for your mental health or for their mental health. Just an opinion. Harmonic says, glad you're streaming early today. I normally watch Texas Paul or Don Lemon during this time. Yeah, we might. I've talked about it to the wife. Moving to the mornings might be advantageous. So we'll see. We're dialing it in. We're dialing in Valor, right? Hippopotamus says, if that happened to me, that wouldn't be messed up enough. I could be a Twitch poll streamer. True. Philip Coffey says, definitely the way to be happy. Life, got to make sure she knows who has the best intellectual position. You got to debate bro the wife, fellas. You got to debate bro the wife. All right, I've been yapping enough. Chat's being funny. My bad. Let's continue. Coffee with Connor. It's not a bad title.
Legal threats that Ethan has sent out recently is against Noah Samson.
I have nothing but vibes to gain and potentially your money as well. Don't worry if you don't have it all now. I'll garnish your wages. You're going to be living with your parents for a lot longer, buddy. 26, you know what I mean? Try 46.
Noah made a video that was critical of Ethan and other content creators when they're talking about Israel and Palestine. I mean, the way he's talking.
Hold on. Wrong. Okay. K-Sogo says morning stream equals more mature audience. Those liberals be sleeping in. That's true. Maybe we want to get the professionals. Okay. Quick shill time. If you haven't liked the stream, that obviously lets other people know that we're live. Be sure to leave comments, chats, all that kind of stuff. It engages the algorithm and helps us reach further. If you do have money burning a hole in your pocket, feel free to do a super chat. It is very helpful. It helps the bosses know that we're making a good show that is entertaining you fine folk at home. If you don't have money burning a hole in your pocket, if you're a wagey and you're broke and you're just waiting to get paid, don't worry about it. If you're also somebody who does have money, but your 401k took a massive hit, so your wife is all up in your grill about the way that you spend money, don't worry about it. Not a big deal. Just watch the content, like the video, etc. Now, this is the thing is we've watched this video from Noah Samson. So this is a massive sanitization from Ian over here. That video isn't a video vaguely critical of creators, who support the state of Israel. What it is it's saying that these YouTubers support a genocide. Then it's 40 minutes of logical and rhetorical support for terrorism then it's a statement that maybe terrorism isn't as bad as you think it is because it's a thing that's necessary in order to fight American imperialism. And then it's roughly 10 to 15 minutes of him being like, and then Ethan Klein said that he supports the state of Israel existing, therefore he's a Zionist genocidal maniac. And these commentary creators took his side in the drama, therefore they're also guilty of supporting genocide. That's the video. So iDubbbz or Ian, like, portraying that video in this very sanitized manner, he's either dumb or he's dumb. Oh my God. Jonah Boy says, I am just now getting up. I was so tired. Holy smack. True. Well, good. Maybe this is a great way to wake people up. Like, start at 9:30, run until like 1 or 2, somewhere in there. Kind of like a morning stream. Dude Man Sue, thank you for the donation. $5. Shh, don't tell the wife. I won't, unless she's a fan. Then she already knows. So anyways, oh, I parasocially love you guys. Thank you kindly for the donations, the views, and the likes. Let's continue. We're actually getting towards the end of the content, which is great because, it's fairly inane, to be honest. It's good drama, but I don't feel like a lot of like really deep points are being made.
About Noah on his podcast is so fucking creepy and weird.
Is this a new thing?
This is a new thing. This happened during the show. Upon initial examination, it seems to check out, and it's not great for young Noah.
Can I say that? Don't say it yet.
I'll say it.
So he's a rape. So of course his standard. I don't know what he's accused of, so I'm not actually going to say. But
Ethan brought on a former partner of Noah to basically just shit talk him and say that he's a bad partner. But that's all that Ethan was able to extract out of it.
You are not accusing him of committing any crimes or doing R-word or anything like that. The accusation is that he's a sleaze.
Absolutely. Noah Sampson, as far as I know, is not a rapist.
Fuck you to Noah Sampson, who's not just a liar and a scumbag, but also a creep, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Now let's talk about...
So hold up. He's also sweeping for Noah Sampson in this conversation. He's like, oh, it's so gross that Ethan Klein brought up this sex drama with Noah Sampson. Hold up, buddy. Hold up, buddy. I like this orientation better. The actual Noah Sampson drama is Noah Sampson positions himself as like a soft boy feminist with a pedo stash. As a matter of fact, let's just pull it up. Let's just pull up Noah Sampson real quick. He could have been a Chad, but he chose to be a soft boy with a pedo stash. So hold on. Let's pull up a Chad of Noah Sampson, okay? This is Noah Sampson probably playing lacrosse or football, something like that. This is Noah Sampson being in shape, good for him, while still having a pedo stash. This is Noah Sampson doing the soft boy. Thank you for the donation, Kesoko. I'll read that momentarily. This is Noah Sampson doing his bisexual lighting pedo stash part down the middle with soft boy lighting. Here's him actually being a Chad playing a sport with like a decent jawline. This looks like wide receiver. Yeah, it looks like football. And then here's him being soy with Hasan Piker. So he could have been a Chad, but he chose to be a soft boy. That's lame. Never be a soft boy when you could be a Chad. So anyways, the story, the drama is that Noah Sampson was, what was it? He engaged in an open relationship with this girl. They were hooking up for a while, and the girl said explicitly in their relationship multiple times, hey, I understand that we're open and dating other people, but when you start dating other people, number one, you need to tell me. Number two, you need to wear protection. I'm not interested in sleeping with you without protection if you're engaging in coitus with other people without protection. And then she found out within a few months that not only had he lied about not having relationships with other people, but he had also lied about not using protection, which, by the way, that's how you get herpes, okay? That's how herpes, this is a terrible joke, but deal with it. That's how herpes becomes his peas, becomes our peas, okay? So the whole point of it is there is actual sexual risk here that Noah Sampson did do something screwed up against the consent of his current partner. And so as a result, Is it bad as Destiny? Probably not. Matter of fact, the Harry Sisson sex drama, I'm not going to get into, but that was a sex drama where he sexted like 11 girls at one time and pretended, according to the girls, pretended that he was like monogamous and interested in them alone. So you got Harry Sisson sexting girls and being a fuckboy. Then you probably have Noah Samson engaging in promiscuous sex without fully telling his partner what's going on in reference to the relationship and wearing protection. Then you have Destiny with the sex leaking, and then you have Hasan Piker going to a P. Diddy party. That would be my sexual scale of impropriety. And also going to like Artemis and then lying to his audience about how the brothel only got in trouble for tax evasion despite no news story saying that. K-Soko says, happy holiday, enjoy your Easter, he has risen. Well, indeed. I'm not a Christian literalist, but I do think that in this time of talking about leftist sexual dramas and progressive sexual dramas, and also the falling out of long-term friends, we do need to remember that there are more important things in life than drama, stupidity with politics as a veneer. But thank you for the donation, K-Soko. Thank you to Dude Mansu, and thank you to K-Soko for your donations. It is greatly appreciated. Harmonic says, that's me too. This is why I left that and cancel culture. True. Gonna herpacifilade, says Seraph702. Indeed. Pepto Pat says, dude thought he was a player, but is just a weirdo for doing that stuff. Yeah, exactly. The Bumbly Reds. Indeed. Amen, says Dude Mansu. Amen. Don't forget Chud and his divorced dad. Oh. Okay. Philip Coffey, you're going to make me get in trouble with commentary. Chud Logic was talking to a girl who was 17 who said that she was 18 or 19 or something like that, but she was obviously very inexperienced, and Chud was being horny, not on main, but horny in DMs. And so it was later revealed that she was like 17 at the time of their flirtatious direct messages. I would put that probably underneath or in par with Harry Sisson. I would say it's underneath Harry Sisson because he did have consent. The girl just lied about her age. And also there was no like physical contact. It was all text messages. Yeah, that's at the bottom for sure. He has risen, and I'm not just talking about, oh, geez, Boater. Y'all are being edgy in chat. Razzle says, I never understand this behavior. If they want to go sleep around, go ahead. I don't kink shame consenting adults and all that, but why do they have to be sleazy about it? Well, that's why I would kink shame and promiscuous shame, is because despite, I love Philip Coffey. Philip Coffey's a good dude. He and I do not agree on sexual dynamics. However, I do think that promiscuous behavior correlates with other bad behaviors. You can say it's not causative, but I would say it's correlative. True Zealot says, Connor with the degeneracy tier list may make for a good segment. True. We should actually, I don't know if Valor would appreciate that as a segment. This is vaguely political, so they'll probably still post it to the main channel as a VOD. But I do think that it would be funny to do like a sex, Twitch and YouTube politics sex drama tier list. That would be fire content. All right. Anyways, I've been yapping. Let's move.
The left-leaning Democrat.
He presents himself as someone like me, a left-leaning Democrat who supports basic things.
The thing that made me start to question Ethan's intentions is that when he was suggested to talk to Sam Seder, a fellow progressive, a guy that Ethan respects and looks up to.
He works with Sam Seder at the Majority Report. I respect him and what they do there.
He kept saying that it was racist or anti-Semitic to suggest that he talked to someone who's within the same ethnic group as him.
That's why I said yesterday, I urge Ethan to talk to Sam Seder. There are very thoughtful, very kind anti-Zionist Jews out there that he could talk to. I don't think that I will be able to reach him.
What's the insinuation that I only listen to other Jewish people? You need to talk to my pre-approved list of Jews that agree with me on everything. It doesn't matter if they're Jewish, dude. It doesn't matter if they're fucking Jewish.
I think most Jews.
I don't think Jews at large view it. I don't think that is the.
In what position are you to even say that?
It's not motivated by myself. It's motivated by Jews against anti-Zionist Jews.
Seriously, how can you speak for my entire ethnic group? I find that really interesting.
Ethan, I don't know what to fucking tell you. This is like step one of having a leftist idea.
Hold on. We're gonna let iDubbbz be pretending that he understands anything about anything momentarily. Let's go ahead and break that down. So while Hasan Piker and Ethan Klein were having their falling out over Israel-Palestine, Ethan kept like trying to appeal to his friend over and over and over again. He was like, listen, man, I think that the state of Israel should exist. I think that it has to be a two-state solution. And I also can't support the slaughter of civilians. And then he would have to like fight. I've seen several clips where he would have to like fight tooth and nail in order to try to pry out this like condemnation of the slaughter of civilians from Hasan Piker. And Hasan would only do it like begrudgingly and after like a 10-minute struggle session, right? And so Hasan basically said like, okay, well, I can't convince you that a one-state Palestinian majority nation is the only just solution going forward. However, Sam Cedar, who is also ethno-religiously Jewish, I don't think he's religious, but ethnically Jewish, agrees with me. Therefore, maybe you should talk to him because then it would be easier for you to agree. And it's like, dude, that is condescending as hell. Saying that, divorcing the argument from the perspective, and then if I hear the same perspective from a different person, that all of a sudden I'll understand with your ideology is baloney. It's BS. It's horse caca. Okay. So I think that Ethan Klein is properly offended because what Hasan Piker is saying is, Ethan, you're too dumb to understand my argument. So you need to hear it from someone else. That way you'll agree with me. Yeah, that's condescending as hell. And then also on top of that, you know, Hasan is effectively saying that like his perspective is obviously the correct perspective. And so maybe you should go listen to this Jewish guy share my perspective. And Ethan is correctly saying like, Sam Cedar doesn't talk for all Jews. It's not like I'm going to go to, you know, they use the word approved Jew, but I'm remembering like the Peter Griffin, King of the Black People, right? Like a meme. I don't know if you guys saw that. I don't want to play the whole thing, but I think he says that like the world is ending. The world is ending, so he's going to go say the N-word in the downtown area. And he was like, they respected me for saying it. So this is Sam Cedar, but it says, you know, King of the Jews, but instead of being Jesus Christ, it's Sam Cedar. And then like he's wearing a Al Qassam Brigade's t-shirt. Like that's what I need you guys to put into your brain at 11:30 in the morning. K-Soko says, I don't know about that guy. Cheating is dog behavior. Lol, I don't think love triangle people are cowardly, especially compared to a cheater. Yeah, sure. Both behaviors are kind of cowardly. Working Bob says, I heard iDubbbz was popular for his content cop stuff in the past. Were they always this stupid? I think that it's easy. Working Bob, I'm going to be real. I think that a lot of these people started a decade ago, which is why they're popular, is because at the time they were trailblazing the style of content. But I also just think it's easier to constantly point out the flaws in your opponents, and it's psychologically easy to consume as an audience member. So really complex, well-done essays are difficult to do, which is why like ContraPoints is the only person, in my opinion, who does it well. Whereas criticizing other people for being stupid is relatively easy. Like we've been calling this guy stupid for like 90 minutes, and we're cooking. You know, we're cooking from an algorithmic perspective on Valor Media, which is a channel that has only been doing live streams for like 2.5 weeks. So yeah. Anyways, Jonah Boy says, I got to say, I can't take these Free Palestine activists seriously when the praxis is a harassment campaign against Ethan. Like, wow, y'all are helping the Palestinians so much. Yeah, they poured more energy and effort into calling Ethan Klein dumb than they did actually helping Palestinians and Gazans. Amazing. K-Soko says, an open relationship takes communication and work. Cheating is just an easy cop-out. Agreed. Well, QC John says, Connor's degenerate Twitch tier list has to include Hunter and Carissa Avalon and Dylan Burns all trying to tear down Chud logic terms, sexually assertive black men. Lol. Yeah. So Hunter Avalon's implosion, marriage implosion, that's the peak. As far as like sex drama in Twitch and YouTube politics, that is the most insane drama that has ever happened ever. So I wonder if Valor would let me do that, or if I would need to do that on my home channel. But I think it's actually like, if we created like little thumbnails and then talked about the dramas and then ranked them, that might actually be fire content. Hill Williams says, I say cowardly because most love triangles, polykills are people that are unhappy in a current relationship but are too scared to make the big decision to let people go and move on. Philip Coffey's going to disagree with you, but that's okay. Pepto Pat says, I don't think some platforms, Sam platforms terrorist and pro-terror apologia like Hasan. You say propaganda. I said apologia. My bad. Agreed. Philip Copy says, K-Soko, basically that. It takes a lot to do that kind of stuff with a lot of work. It's like relationships, Dark Souls. A lot of people who try it are not emotionally or even mentally built for it. Yeah. Philip Copy has our protection. Okay. He's like, I'm trying to think of I can't think of it. We've talked a billion times. We're friends. We've hung out in real life. And I can see his Discord profile, but I can't remember his handle. We have a resident furry in the Discord, and he is protected because he is a nice and kind and sweet human being. Philip Coffey has my blessings as our resident polycule relationship haver. Christian Blair says, Cotter, tell people at Valor to fix their notifications. Yeah, absolutely. So for the few people who are not few people, but for the people who watch this as a VOD, if you turn on notifications for the channel where you ring the bell, YouTube does this thing where they're only going to notify you about things that you algorithmically engage with frequently. Whereas if you click the bell and you go down to all notifications, it will effectively let you know that when we're live and when post-recorded videos are posted. So if you want to see us more frequently, do all notifications and then engage with the content, and that'll boost us in the algorithm. Switch notifications to all is an easier way to say that. Christian Blair says, what type of furry is he? I'm going to be a little mean. He's the furry that can't afford a suit. So he has, like an online persona, and he talks to other furries and hangs out with them online, but he hasn't spent $3,000 on a fursuit, right? Philip Coffey says, lol, just to make sure it's clear, I'm not the furry guy. We're two different people. Okay, Philip Coffey wants you to know that he is the Dark Souls polyamorous relationship guy and not the furry. Okay? Philip Coffey wants you to know that. I want you to know that. Chat now knows it. Okay. All right. Yapping again. I get caught yapping again on my own stream. How dare I? All right. We got some time left. Let's do the content.
Ideology is recognizing our race, religion, nationality, all this shit, all shape our experiences as people.
That's the reason why it'd be better served to have this conversation not with myself, but with an anti-Zionist Jewish person.
Why does it matter if they're Jewish?
Because I'm not Jewish, and you've said in this conversation that, like, how can you tell me how to feel about the situation?
Yeah, but how is one person a representative of Jews at large? I'm just telling you how Jewish people around the world interpret that phrase.
So yes, Ethan, on occasion, you might be suggested to talk to someone who has some crossover with you. It doesn't have to be your ethnicity. It could possibly be someone who shares progressive ideology with you. It could possibly be someone.
So hold up. We're going to do a little geopoll. I love me some geopoll. I'll try to be very fast with it because obviously not everybody is into geopoll. But geopoll is geography mixed with politics. For those of you who don't know, it's actually wildly interesting how countries' politics are shaped by their geographic location, their neighbors, their topography, their resources, all that kind of stuff. That's why geopolitics is wildly interesting to me. But I want to show you this real quick because I think the argument that iDubbbz is only vaguely alluding to is the fact that there's a phrase in progressive and leftist circles called "from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." And there are also people in those circles, who say that Israel is not a state, it's an occupation. And so the logical inference from those two statements, Israel is not a state, it's an occupation, means that all of this territory that is currently occupied by majority Jewish folks, secular, religious, Orthodox, progressive, liberal, all that stuff, this is not a true country. This is not real, right? That's what those people are saying. And when they say from the river to the sea, what they're saying is they're talking about the Jordan River, which flows right here It's effectively the border between Jordan and the state of Israel. And they're saying that Palestine will be free. Well, Palestine was the name of the territory given to this area by the Romans after they sacked and destroyed, I think, the second temple. And so they're saying that we're going to return it to the name of Palestine, and this from the river to the sea, all of it will be free. Now, the peaceful members of this of these statements say, oh, well, we'll create a single state that will be majority Palestinian, and Jews and Palestinians will live in peace and harmony together in this thing that will be known as Palestine. What the Israelis say is that the peaceful people are woefully naive, and they're providing cover for jihadist militants who want to destroy the entire state of Israel and then enslave and render second-class citizens to the Jewish people in the state of Israel. That's the disagreement. And frankly, I don't think, regardless of whether or not it's a Muslim person who's peaceful, a jihadist who's not peaceful, regardless of whether or not it's a Jew who's peaceful or progressive and believes in a one-state solution, or a Zionist Jew who believes in a two-state solution, or believes in a one-state solution dominated by the state of Israel, you're not going to change someone's mind that from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free is potentially a dog whistle for the destruction of the state of Israel. You're never going to convince them of that. So yeah. Razzle Smasher says, yes, it was named Palestine after the Philistines, who were the Jews' ancient enemy. Right. Exactly. To spite them and break their connection to the land. I've heard historians argue it back and forth on whether or not Palestinian is an etymological derivation of the word Philistine. I've seen it asserted that it is. And then I've seen historians argue about whether or not that was intended as a punishment, or if it was just like a pragmatic Roman ruling. Either way, who cares? The point is that, like, etymologically, Palestine does sound like Philistine, and then also the points about geopolitics stand regardless of whether or not you support them. Anyways, geopolitical rant over, back into the drama.
One who is of your same gender. I think Ethan understands this concept very well. He listened to these women on his show when they told him that he shouldn't be calling women bitches.
This bitch is intolerable. You are such a nasty fucking bitch, Ken.
I don't know if you can call her a bitch, though.
She is a bitch. She's a fucking. You're right. I call her a see you next Tuesday.
Listen, you have.
Curious, what do Lena and Sam think about it?
I wouldn't be okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that it's for the girlies, Ethan. But I
So
agree.
you guys all seem to be
Yeah.
in consensus that
We
it's in
are.
poor form. I think to respect the women here in the room, I'm going to have to pass on saying that.
The infantilization of Ethan Klein is fucking nauseating. He's not a child. He is absolutely capable of looking into Hasan, learning about his politics, interviewing, doing loads of things to figure out where he stands.
He presents himself as someone like me, a left-leaning Democrat who supports basic things. And for the first time, I noticed an inordinate amount of radical, hardcore leftists. I mean, I thought we were social democrats, not whatever this was. This comment from Hasan really started to sound some alarms in my head. I was already getting uncomfortable with our partnership. I started to wonder if I had any idea who this guy actually is.
You made how many episodes with Hasan? Like, this guy made a fucking program with the biggest mega leftist on the platform. Now he's acting like he was tricked and he was incapable of figuring out what this guy's beliefs were. Bro, I didn't make the fucking leftist program. You did. You made fucking, 60 some odd episodes of this shit for hours talking to this guy? You didn't have a problem with any of it until, Ethan talks about being aware of Hasan's 9/11 comments and then sort of leaves it at that. Like it was just a joke. Actually, I think Ethan describes them as edgy moments or jokes.
You might remember him from such classics as
America deserved 9/11, dude. Fuck it. I'm saying it.
Now, to be clear, I knew about all these edgy and controversial jokes at the time we made the show together, because who am I to judge?
This is actually Ian is going to make a point that's so stupid that it's actually psychically painful, and I'm excited to hear it.
No, Ethan, those aren't jokes, right? When someone makes a controversial statement like that, that's not them trying to be funny. I can understand why you would conflate the two. That is someone who is extremely frustrated and passionate about a particular topic. In this case, American imperialism and terrorism.
Okay. So what just happened? I'm actually going to go full screen for this. Let's add that back to stage. Let's remove this. Let's do this. Okay. I'm going to look at chat real quick, and I want you to realize what just happened, okay? In this case, American imperialism and terrorism, okay? So on one hand, we have this entire gaslighty episode where Ian is saying, Ethan, you're going crazy. You're harassing people. You're talking about them on your stream. You're being anti-Arab. You're talking about this. You're talking about that. And why do you expect to not get blowback? Are you crazy? Like, he's doing that in the most condescending, low-T, whiny way possible for the past like 90 minutes. And then when we finally get to something substantive, which by the way is a substantive point from Ian, he makes the worst choice possible, which is effectively saying, yes, Hasan Piker is a terrorist apologist, and I agree with him. And the way that I would make all these inferences, by the way, is by saying, like, he wasn't joking, so iDubbbz knows that he's not joking. He's being hyperbolic because he's frustrated about American imperialism and terrorism, okay? Now, I agree with leftists to a degree, and I agree with fascist critics of the liberal order to a degree, that America is effectively operating a liberal hegemonic empire, okay? 2/3 of the global economy is either aligned with us economically, militarily, or both, okay? And then, on top of having 2/3 of the world economy lined up with American international trade, we are the primary military guarantor of that trade. And so as a result, you'll see us taking part in actions in Somalia, in Yugoslavia, in Central America, in Africa, in Europe, in Ukraine, in Japan, in the Philippines. And so it's like, wait, hold on. Who appointed the United States of America world police in order to fight jihadist terrorism internationally? And I'll tell you, it's the $70 trillion of international trade that buoys the American economy. Dr. Zaya says Yugoslavia. If I did say Yugoslavia, I meant that. Yeah, 100%. So Yugoslavia, it was like the former Yugoslavia because it collapsed and the Serbians started genociding the Muslim Bosniaks. And then as a result, NATO, backed by the United States, intervened in that. Yeah, 100%. These were all like American military adventurism, you could call it. And so, but here's the thing. There's a conflation between armed uniformed forces operating under a rules of engagement with consent, relatively speaking, of the international economic order and terrorism, okay? Terrorism is, and this is an important moral distinction, terrorism is slaughtering civilians intentionally in order to communicate a political point, and it's oftentimes considered illicit because it's by non-state actors, okay? With a state, oftentimes, there's a series of checks and balances for the internal ways that a state conducts its military affairs. And then there's also rules of engagement. So while if you just put up, let's use Iraq as an example, okay? In the Iraq war, the United States ignored the international community and said that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, and Saddam Hussein is a psychopath, proven psychopath, by the way, historically, who has an Al-Qaeda chapter in their country. Therefore, if we let them hang out and play footsie, then the next 9/11, this was like 2002, 2003, by the way, the next 9/11 might be conducted with weapons of mass destruction, and that is a danger to the world that we cannot tolerate. Therefore, we have to invade Iraq. You can criticize all of it. You can say, oh, they used hyperbole in order to do the invasion. I've already talked about the Rigel report. I've talked about all that stuff. Anyways, the point is that once we invaded and deposed Saddam Hussein and his government, 80% of the casualties were not coalition forces slaughtering Muslim civilians. 80% of the people killed in the Iraq conflict, which you can rightfully blame the United States for instigating, 80% of it was done by Muslim jihadists against other Muslim jihadists. It was Shia versus Sunni sectarian violence in order to seize power within the collapsed state. That's what it was. It was a civil war that the United States helped kick off. But do you ever hear that from these leftist propagandists? Do you ever hear that from Anissa Joma, who is 8% Lebanese? Do you ever hear that from Frogan, who is half Lebanese? Do you ever hear that from Hasan Piker, who is Turkish? No, you never hear that. The way that they characterize these military interventions is they characterize it as the United States shows up without rules of engagement, and then they just machine gun civilians for fun because that's what the American military industrial complex likes to do. And it's not true. So let's go ahead and pull up, just in case like I have some skeptical lefties that watch this later, let's go ahead and pull up the Iraq Body Count Project, which, by the way, started in the 2000s and was an anti-American database, okay? It's to document the crimes committed by coalition forces, alleged crimes, the alleged crimes of Americans in the Iraq War. So all Iraq, any perpetrators, all anti-government / occupation forces, Islamic State of Iraq, unknown actors. So hold on, let's take a look at it. Using any weapons, one or more, all Iraq, any perpetrators versus, oh, okay. Let's do this, and then let's update the database. How do I update it? I'm going to share it momentarily. Download graph as a spreadsheet. Let me open it up. And sorry if it's taking me a second. I will present momentarily. I just want to see if I can divide up the deaths by faction. And if I can't, you can still use this reference and you can divide it up yourself because I've already looked at this thing a dozen times. Show or compare number of incidents per month from 2003 to 2025 in all of Iraq by any perpetrators and any weapons versus all Iraq, U.S.-led coalition, no Iraqi state forces, any weapons or more. Here we go. This is it. I'm going to share it with you. Add to stage. Let's move over here. This blue is coalition forces. This is Iraq. So this is the Iraq war from 2003 during the invasion to present. There's a spike in the beginning where the U.S. was invading and obviously fighting armed forces in Iraq and fighting militias. Then there's the beginning of insurgent activity here. This is probably like Fallujah right here, like Fallujah 1 and Fallujah 2. Then here's all of the ensuing sectarian violence. And then here's ISIS taking over Iraq. Do you notice the blue? The blue is like 10% to 20% of the people killed in the state of Iraq was not done by coalition forces. It was done by jihadist militants. So again, please tell me whenever Frogan, whenever DenimsTV, whenever Hasan Piker, whenever any of these people acknowledge the fact that it's not United States or international or American imperialism and terrorism that's killing all these people, it's more jihadist terrorism. The people that they're sweeping for the entire time. When they're sweeping for Hamas, this is what they want. When they're sweeping for Hezbollah, this is what they want. When they're sweeping for the Houthis, this is what they want. They want this 10% of the American forces and the international forces to disappear, and then they want all of this violence to continue without any external interference. They're not fighting for an end to bloodshed. They're fighting for an end to bloodshed caused specifically by the Western world. So you're being lied to. Like you're being lied to. Okay? These people, yeah. Christian Valeris is saying that I'm giving them too much credit. You're either being lied to or the most popular political commentators on Twitch are absolute morons who have no capacity to research anything historical whatsoever. I could rant for another 5 minutes, but I'm not going to. We'll get back into the content. But iDubbbz and iDubbbz's audience, Ian's audience, are the useful morons that Hasan Piker and Frogan and DenimsTV and whatever that Noah Samson, they are the useful morons that these leftists are looking for. Keisoko says, I don't agree, but I think that's what they mean. I mean, you can explain it. You can explain it and I'll read it to chat. That's my perspective. Continuing.
You could have looked into that. You could have talked to Hasan a little bit more and found out what his international politics opinions are. But you wouldn't even need to do that. You can look at it online. You're not a victim. You weren't tricked. You made 60 some odd episodes. If you didn't want to go down this route, you shouldn't have done it. But that was your fucking choice. You did it. You are an adult. When Ethan and Hila are watching Matt Lieb saying that one state doesn't represent all Jews, they cannot wrap their heads around the idea.
No single person represents all Jews. I'm just telling you how Jewish people around the world interpret that phrase. No single person represents all Jews, as no single state represents all Jews.
This is another weird thing.
Oh
Israel
my God.
Israel, this is a lie that I see Hasan and people pander. They say that Israel's going to war on behalf of Judaism. They have never, I don't believe that that's ever been stated. And I don't think Israel ever explains that it's like, I think Israel says it's a place where Jews can go.
Israel's just a place Jews can go? With that slogan, we might actually have peace. You know, if that's all you're defining Israel as, is a place Jews can go.
Yeah, I think this is a straw man, and he's being willfully obtuse. We'll keep moving with the content because I don't want to fall for every piece of bait and every rake that they step in. But effectively, I think that you can make the statement that Israel is not representative of all Judaism, but then Ethan Klein admits that. He literally says, I don't think Israel argues that it's the only place that represents all of Judaism. So therefore, he already agrees, and Ian is kind of dunking on a point in which they agree.
Like, sure, it sounds like America to me. Like, all right.
I don't think that Israel said they represent all Jews. I don't think that's a stance. We're like, hey, displacing Palestinians is all Jewish people.
Ethan is being so disingenuous here to suggest that he doesn't understand what Matt Lieb is saying. Like, he's making a semantic argument. Like, I don't think Israel has said that it represents every last Jew on the planet. I don't think Israel has claimed that. They're not going to say that their most genocidal behavior represents anything to do with them, okay? But what they are going to do is they're going to inexplicably link Israel and Jewishness together. So when they're being criticized, all of a sudden they have the perfect defense. Oh.
Sorry, I got to go full screen again. About to do another geopolitical rant. My apologies to everyone at home who has to endure it. Zionism and the history of Judaism are linked. I don't know if you knew this, but they are. It's linked in the Old Testament. The way that it's linked is that Zion is the promised land. For those of you who don't know, 1,200 years before Christ, the Jews were Semitic people that were broadly living in Egypt. And what ended up happening was they were slaves at the time, and they got released probably around the time of Tutankhamun, which is 1,200 years before Christ. So this is 3,200 years ago. They travel into the world of Canaan, and they engage in a series of battles that allows them to establish the state of Judea, and then later the kingdoms of Israel. And so as a result, they rule that territory on and off for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So this is like established historical fact 3,200 years ago. And also it's through the covenant of Abraham. Abraham was promised by God that he would occupy the river from the Nile all the way, I think it's to the Euphrates. So effectively from Western Iraq to the Nile River, that was all going to be Zion. That was all going to be occupied by the descendants of Abraham, and technically is. But historically, that's what Jews care about, is the land of Zion, the land of Israel. And then what happens is they get invaded by the Babylonians, and they go into the Babylonian exile. They get invaded by the Greeks, and then they're occupied by the Greeks. They get invaded by the Romans, and then they're occupied by the Romans. They're invaded by the Muslims, and then they're occupied by the Muslims. Then they're invaded by the Crusaders, and then the Crusaders kill them all. And then they're like, you know what? We're sick of getting murdered. We are going to spread out all over the place, so most of us can't get wiped out at one time. And that's where you have the Jewish diaspora, where plenty of Jews live in North Africa, plenty of Jews live in the Middle East and North Africa, plenty of Jews move to Asia, and plenty of Jews move to Europe because they're frankly sick of getting conquered and murdered, right? But there was always the dream of Israel. There was always the dream of Zion, the promised land between the Nile and the Euphrates. And so what happened was in the 19th century, so 200 years ago, despite the Jews having a 3,200 year history in the region, some Jews say, this is part of our cultural heritage. We need a state that's exclusively for us. We need to guard our own existence. the 14 words or whatever. It's like, we need to guard the existence of Jewish people and secure a future for them or whatever, right? So that's where they compare them to Nazis, even though they're not Nazis, right? And so as a result, plenty of Jews start moving back into the area that was former Israel and Judea, and then they start occupying it. Then they start beefing with their neighbors. Then they fight with their neighbors. Then they declare independence. And then we have 100 years of conflict. So saying that Judaism is somehow inexplicably tied to the state of Israel is the kind of political and historical ignorance that I expect out of a stupid person like iDubbbz. End of rant. Ooh. This guy knows what's under the pyramids. I don't, but you could tell it to me, and I would watch.
Oh, another thing I need to mention. There was a tier list. It was called the Who Can Say Habibi tier list. It was presented at TwitchCon as like a panel that was just meant to be lighthearted and fun. And Ethan Klein saw that, and he...
I want to move through the conflict, so I'm going to like watch 5 minutes of sweeping for the panel, and I'll pause it when he's done sweeping for the panel.
He decided that it was anti-Semitic.
Tier list them, and we're going to need your help to discuss and figure out who can say Habibi and who can't.
And also, we have tiers. We have Arab coded. They ask permission to say Habibi. You know, like you got like a white guy's like, can I say it? Is it slurs? And then Love Sabra, which is they're not Arab coded at all.
Now, when I first saw this tier list, I immediately knew what it was doing. I was like, oh, it's a play on the who has the N-word pass and who doesn't tier list. Granted, Habibi is very different than the N-word, but it is a cultural word amongst Arabic-speaking people and Muslim people. Like that is a word that's used. Habibi, it means my love. Oh no, don't do that, Habibi. Oh yes, Habibi. You're my Habibi, I'm your Habibi. So yes, it's meant to be a fun way that these Arab content creators can express their Arab culture and be proud of it and happy about it, because it's not like they have massive representation on the platform.
Making a tier list based on race, and nobody has a fucking problem with that. Okay, you have a tier list based on race. Where's the Jewish panel? Where's the Jewish panel? Where at the top it says Jewish. It's a tier list based on Arab to Jew. He's Arab, which is good. That's the best thing you can be on this. That's the best. This is racist.
I will say that conveying information through a tier list is not the most effective thing, but Ethan should understand this principle. He did a white slurs tier list with Hasan.
Cracker.
I mean, you know, my...
Okay, so this is where he's totally dodging the point, and I think iDubbbz is actually like, again, a useful idiot, effectively. So this is on their show, okay? This is on Ethan and Hasan's show during the Cracker drama, which, by the way, I find annoying, okay? I don't care if you say anti-white slurs, but if you say anti-white slurs, I'm going to say anti-whatever your people's slurs are. I'm going to go look up a dictionary filled with slurs, and if you're talking about all the white slurs that you love so much, then I'm going to talk about whatever slurs are used against your people, right? So I don't have a problem with people talking about slurs. Nobody cares about that. What they care about specifically is the fact that this was a sponsored Twitch event where Capcom, Samsung, and somebody else probably spent tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, to have their names shown behind the list. So Ian, because he's a dipstick, already admitted that this is effectively a play on words about the N-word panel, right? And so he already knows that this is like racially insensitive. And then he doesn't address this because I've already pre-watched this, right? He doesn't address this. Sabra means in, I think, Hebrew, if I'm looking this up right now, it's right on your screen, and I'm not making this up. Sabra in Hebrew means a Jewish person born in Israel. And then also, it's an Israeli-owned hummus company, okay? And then while they're doing the panel, they're dog whistling about whether or not Love Sabra is simultaneously an inauthentic Arab person, an inauthentic white person, or a Jewish person, right? So that's where, for me, you can say like it's not racist, but he already conceded that it was racist. It was sponsored by people who paid millions of dollars to have their names associated with the event. And then not just that, they used a dog whistle, and then they dog whistled during the panel. I don't care. I'm not offended. I don't care that you're talking about it. As a matter of fact, I think that it would be hilarious in order to do like an N-word panel. I think it would be hilarious. Who can say the N-word? Who can say the C word, cracker? Who can say the C word, C-U-N-T for women? That would be hysterical. But I wouldn't expect multi-million-dollar companies to pay to have their names behind the racial slur panel while supporting a company that is a multi-billion-dollar media company. I'm talking about Twitch. So the fact that Ian somehow completely misses that point or those series of points makes me assume that the only people that he's listened to about this incident is exclusively Hasan, Frogan, and Denims. That's the only way that you could have this perspective and be this wildly ignorant about it. Oh. Yeah, Kalinda says, in other words, they don't think Jews are real Middle Eastern people. Yeah. And by the way, you hear that all the time from anti-Zionists. They say that the largest, it's like the largest amount of skin cancer on the planet is in Israel, which indicates that Israelis are not true Middle Eastern and North African people. Therefore, they're European colonists who don't deserve the state of Israel. Yes, that's actually said by people more vile than the people that we're talking to or talking about. But the people that we're talking about dog whistle to those people all the time. Working Bob says, you pre-watch this to get your daily dose of psychic damage? No, Working Bob. Good question, though. I pre-watched this through Nicholas Diorio, and I think I started watching Chud Logic, but then I fall asleep. Of course, like anybody who loves drama, they love watching their favorite creators comment on the most recent drama. And I do rotate between Nick Diorio, Chud Logic, and sometimes Queeman whenever there's a drama that pops off that I'm actually interested in. Kalinda says, even though a large portion of Israelis are descendants of Jews from other Middle Eastern countries. Yep. Philip Coffey says, yeah, but you can never trust those places. We're talking authoritative slurs here. Sup, Habibi? Habibi, please. Habibi, what? I can't read that last one. Peptopot says, so they put the guy born in America who they call a Zionist in the Sabra category just because he's a Jew? No, not just because he's a Jew, right? They're going to fall back on, well, he probably likes the unpopular hummus brand Sabra, which is Israel owned. So he's inauthentically Middle Eastern and North African, right? So they would mute the dog whistle. It would be a Mott and Bailey situation. So a Mott and Bailey is a defensive fortification where there's like a lower ground area and a higher ground area. I forget which one's which, but I'm pretty sure I always get it wrong and I invert them. But effectively what happens is you have the anti-Semitic dog whistles at first, and then when people call you out on the anti-Semitic dog whistles, you retreat back to the stronger fortification, which is, oh, we're just talking about hummus, right? And so here's the thing. It would be one thing if this was like a new social phenomena, but literally the entire left was obsessed with dog whistles, Mott and Bailey's, debate bro tactics. They studied all of this stuff for a decade, and half the people who were on the panel participated in the debate scene and are therefore aware of all these tactics. So pretending that these people have no idea what I'm talking about or what Ethan is talking about is either cope or being a useful idiot. Chase says, if we are going to have a slur panel, just want all slurs to be represented. Exactly. I'm an equal opportunity slur sayer. For sure. Twitch definitely seems to like to place the final definitive authority. Twitch definitely seems like the place to find the definitive authority for leftism and progressivism. I don't know if you're being sarcastic, but for leftism and progressivism, they do seem to be the place that actually like leftist thought is fomented in social media. You watch Queeman, I thought you ate him. No, not yet. Not yet. Queeman and I have a love-hate relationship. I think he's abrasive, autistic. I think he's similar to like an autistic cruise missile, similar to President Sunday, but he does make me laugh on occasion, so I can't hate him for too long. Hippopotity. Nice. Kalinda says, it's insane because if you go to Israel, they're just as Middle Eastern as the rest of the region. Right. There are white-looking North Africans. They exist. There are white-looking Libyans. As a matter of fact, all the people who are on the panel, a majority of them are freaking Lebanese, and they look as white as I do. Well, I'm Irish, so I'm a little bit more pale than your average white person. They look as white as Italians. Let's put it that way. Okay, Soko, you said it, not me. All slurs matter. Indeed, Pachydermis absurdus. I agree with you. They do. All right. Sorry for yapping. Let's go.
I take it.
We can't put this as an F. Cracker. I mean, that's got to be at least a D, right?
Pale face motherfucker.
Pale face. I mean, again, I think that's an F. Hog.
So hog is my favorite. I use it all the time.
Him and Hasan feel as though they're white guys, so they felt very comfortable talking about white slurs on their tier list.
I think I'm more white than you. What do you think?
I think I'm white. Like, I'm super white.
Can you understand why Arabs might feel comfortable talking about Arab shit on their tier list, Ethan? You're the white guy. You think you're more white than Hasan.
I think I'm more white than you.
So, yeah, the white guy can say all the things that he wants, like cracker, but the Arabs can't have their tier list.
I would put him also in.
They can have their tier list. They just shouldn't have it on a sponsored panel from a multi-billion-dollar company with Samsung, Capcom, and Chevron in the background, who are in turn multi-billion-dollar companies who probably spent hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on the marketing for this event.
An Arab. I know Turkish people are different.
Notice how they dropped the premise almost immediately that it's about who can say Habibi, and then it's like Hasan.
I agree with Jonah Boy. Yakubian ape is one of the best anti-white slurs. I agree. I do like snow monkeys. I do like mayo monkeys. I do like vanilla gorilla. Basically anything monkey based, I think is funny in reference to white slurs. So yeah. And I could go into my appreciation for all slurs, but this is a family show, you know? Yeah, but Arabs can't have their tier list, have the biggest white savior energy ever. Yeah, exactly, Chase, exactly. Dude, you can have your tier list. I don't care about your tier list. Don't have it at a sponsored event with billion-dollar companies paying hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars for you to do it. There's no way in hell Twitch would let me do the whites slur tier list as a sponsored event.
Okay, actually, he's Arab. We fucking love him. He's dope. He's Arab.
Habibi is an Arabic word. That is an Arabic word, Ethan.
Funny about this whole thing is that they say Habibi in Israel. Again, people underestimate just how like mixed Israeli culture is. Like
we say Habibi in Israel. Yes, Ethan. Another piece of evidence as to why it isn't anti-Semitic.
This is racist.
If you're not Arab or understand Arab culture at all, which is a lot of Americans, and Ethan Klein presents you this tier list and calls it anti-Semitic, you're just going to eat it up. It's not. Ethan is just proving his location on this tier list under Love Sabra because he doesn't understand Arab culture. There's a lot of Arabs who eat Sabra. There's a lot of people like me who eat Sabra. A lot of the times it's all that's in the store and I'm going to buy it and I'm going to eat it, but it is not the good shit. Like the average Arab American, they're going to go in the store and the only option they have is fucking Sabra. And that sucks that that's the only option, right? Arab communities and distribution facilities are not widespread across the U.S. So what are they left with? They're left with a common, relatable, shitty hummus, which is Sabra.
Which is Israeli, and the word actually means an Israeli Jew. This word, Sabra, means Jew, born in Israel. So there's no way that it could be a dog whistle when the packaging in Hebrew literally says Jew born in Israel and it's owned by an Israeli company. So Love Sabra cannot be a dog whistle. This is Ian's argument and it's dumb as hell.
And what's so fucking pathetic about this whole thing is after he was able to get these Arab creators banned off of Twitch for 30 days, he goes on to talk about how bad Sabra hummus is on his show.
I don't think anybody wants to prefer Sabra over.
I'm going to fast forward it because this wasn't his point. No one made a point about whether or not Sabra hummus was good. The question was whether or not Sabra hummus was a dog whistle. Ian is so stupid. He's so fried from smoking pot and being rich and not being connected to the world that he stopped having the capacity to critically think. And so he thinks that Ethan Klein criticizing the quality of the hummus of Sabra somehow negates the fact that Sabra itself can be used as an anti-Israeli dog whistle. That's not even a point. It's not even close to cogent or coherent.
I don't know.
And Eric.
Medic.
This is what he did. He hit his heart hard.
He can have that discussion.
Here's the other top 10 dumbest points in the video.
much as he wants on his podcast, because we all know his intentions aren't anti-Semitic.
This is what he did. He hit his heart hard.
The Zionism is leading to not accepting other cultures, embracing their own culture, and instead thinking that that is an attack on you.
It literally was. Sabra literally means Jew from Israel. They talk about Zionism. They say that they need to add one more category, Zionist, and they need to add Ethan Klein to it. Ethan Klein doesn't support the military occupation of Gaza. He just supports the right of the state of Israel to exist. So the fact that you take a moderate and then you say that he's an extremist kind of indicates how far you've lost the plot. Chase says, as a pothead, I must defend the honor of marijuana. His crazy is all him and not weed. Okay, well, you know, make some intelligent points in chat so we can believe you, okay? In case Soko says, hey, don't blame weed. This guy was a moron before. Wow. Yeah, all the stoners. All the stoners are mad. Dude Man Sue says, quit weed 3 weeks ago after being a heavy daily user for 13 years, and I've never had a more clear head. Yeah, maybe occasional use, guys. Occasional use.
There's this incident on the podcast where they were reacting to Cutie Cinderella.
I'm gonna do a back
was laughing during it. So that ended up being a pretty important wake-up call for Ethan. He made an apology video directed at Cutie Cinderella, and it was graded by a professional psychologist, Dr. Kirk Honda of Psychology in Seattle. And Ethan got an A+ rating.
In terms of a public apology, this is A+.
Ethan won't stop talking about his A+ rating.
You know, he rated my apology to Cutie Cinderella a perfect score, a perfect 10.
A perfect 10 out of 10?
Literally 10 out of 10. Go back. I can teach you how to make a good apology. I'm the best.
10 out of 10.
I know what a perfect apology is, lady. You fucking don't. Is my perfect apology in this PowerPoint? Dude, I got a perfect 10 out of 10.
Oh, another thing that's totally irrelevant that he's talking about. The point of the apology, which, by the way, I think he walked back his apology since. At least that's what I heard from Nicholas DiOrio anyways. The apology is direct, accepting responsibility, saying that you're contrite about the issue. You're going to try to not do it in the future. You don't expect people to forgive you, but you're going to try to be better moving on. That's like a perfect 10 out of 10 apology. Who cares? So let's watch Ethan cringe for, like, do something very stupid for the next 5 minutes.
Moment during this video, like, could I do something that would really wake Ethan up? And I don't know if this came from a good place or not, but I came up with the idea of getting Ethan's grade changed from an A to a B at least. So I went to visit Psychology in Seattle. I'm not confident that Kirk will change his grade, but it's worth trying. And, you know, we might learn a thing or two.
Xander! Probably get pretty low marks. Unlike me, perfect score, 10. I said, hey, Lud, no wig drama. Why are you such a spineless coward of a person now that you've inserted yourself and your girlfriend into this conversation?
Okay, iDubbbz, I hear you. You're in the room with me right now. I hear you. I hear your request. I understand it. I can understand where it's coming from. And I guess have a policy that when there is a grade for an apology, I am just grading that discrete apology as
Taking day. You need to stick around because it gets worse. Okay, it actually gets like, he tries to pull out a wholesome card at the very end, and it actually doesn't resonate with the rest of the art piece. It's pretty bad.
As I see it, without taking any consideration of prior or future behavior. If you're wanting me to comment on the overall behavior or the recent behavior from the clips that you have shown me, I believe that Ethan is a good person, and that eventually he will feel sorrow and will feel sorry and will apologize, and I will be there to evaluate that apology when it happens, which I know it will.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Unfortunately, Kirk did not change his grade, but that's okay.
Listen. This is actually where I'm okay with it, okay? So a lot of people said that this particular moment was cringe, where he went to go try to get the apology. And I'm sorry if I'm out of breath. I am working out. That this was cringe because iDubbbz didn't get what he wanted. But this is what is endearing, okay? I think iDubbbz is a useful idiot. I think he's getting used by far left jihadist apologist morons. I think that he's attacking his old friend in a way that's wildly hypocritical. I think that if he had simply defended his friend in reference to harassment, but said, I otherwise don't agree with my friend, this entire scenario could have been avoided. However, he's got a 4.5 million view video, so I guess good for him in that respect, right? Now, showing your cringe to the audience, I get that a lot of people probably are cringing in the audience as a result of him like going out on a weird cringe thing to do and then not getting it and then showing that anyways. But the truth is, being like self-deprecating and showing that you screwed up is fine. It's fine. It's funny. It's endearing. You might not like it because you think this guy is cringe and wrong. I agree with you. But being self-deprecating and showing your cringe to the audience is actually okay. It can be endearing sometimes. Not this time, but sometimes.
Because this is the internet, anyone can have their own official apology rating system. So I'm going to rate Ethan's apology a B-. That's just based on my own feelings and my own rubric. When Psychology in Seattle was watching these video clips of Ethan, he said that it looks like Ethan could just use a hug. Now, of course, it kind of pisses me off to hear that shit because I'm like, what are we doing? What are we saying? He needs a hug? No, he doesn't need a hug. He needs a good fucking ass whooping is what he needs. I think something that's very important to me in bringing back Content Cop is to be fair. I think that was something that was not illustrated in previous Content Cops that I think should have been and probably wouldn't have left me with so much regret. Ethan deserves all of the criticism that he's getting. I think it's very valid. But I also think at the end of the day, we should acknowledge that he's human because he is human. And he is in a situation that's making him extremely scared, paranoid, defensive, sensitive, and I'm sure other features and feelings. In the spirit of Kirk saying that it looks like Ethan could just use a hug, I have challenged some of his most powerful haters to put down the haterade and just say something nice and charitable about him because I think he deserves it.
Okay, hold up. Before we move into this is actually the cringe part. So taking day, I think you said earlier, this is just petty. Yeah, dude, this is the part that I was warning you about. So get ready. Put on your seatbelt. Before we do that, though, Light of Exer. I don't see this part as self-deprecating. If anything, he's somewhat slandering Science Seattle for not going along with him. Yeah, but that was a joke. At least the way that I'm reading it is, oh, this guy stinks. He's just making a joke. He's poking fun. He's saying, I wanted to achieve this thing. You're not helping me with it. Therefore, you suck. But he doesn't actually mean that you actually suck. He's just saying that because it's like, oh, you didn't give me the thing that I wanted. So he's pretending, in my opinion, to be petty when he actually probably in real life respects him sticking by his guns, right? Ass whooping for hugs. Yeah, that needs to be the other content that we make. Pepto Pat says, yeah, he's lame for that. Came to Seattle, got embarrassed and left. Oh, no. This is lol for gaslighting. This lol of gaslighting is so cringe. Yeah, it's bad. Warning chat, prepare for massive cringe. Yeah, it's going to be brutal. So you guys could probably watch this on your own. I don't want you to. I want you to watch it with me. I'm going to pause after each creator's segment and tell you why their praise of Ethan Klein is so hollow.
Just wanted to say that I respect that you are genuinely yourself on the internet. I think a lot of other people respect you for it as well. I think that's a big reason why people were drawn to your content in the first place. I think that's a lot of the reason why your employees chose to work with you over anyone else.
Ethan, I think it's respectable that you even began this journey to leave behind the anti-SJW crowd and step into a more empathetic worldview. I know it's not easy.
Ethan Klein, I think that when you are being
All right. So this is so funny. Denim says that like you're authentic and authenticity is the thing that draws a lot of people to you, but she doesn't bring up the fact that she thinks that he authentically sucks. So that's where she's talking about a virtue, but she's like, yeah, but you suck though. So like, yeah, sure, you're real, but what you're real about actually sucks. Then Sean DeBlack says, started as an SJW, but came to a more empathetic worldview. Sean DeBlack, that creator, I've had people confirm that that's Sean DeBlack. He's the guy. And of course, like it could be like a meme moment. Maybe his other content is less edgy, but he's the person that said effectively that if Destiny was MURDERED by a KNIFE, that they would have already achieved socialism. And I think the whole rant was effectively saying that like liberals aren't your allies. They're actually a hindrance to leftist political movement. And so as a result, you should treat liberals as aggressively as you treat fascists. And so having Sean DeBlack say, I love that you moved from an aggressive, abrasive, anti-SJW content to a more empathetic thing, considering what Sean DeBlack is most known for, that's a hilarious statement. So let's back up and get Matt Lieb's statement. And then, excuse me, Philip Coffey says, this whole thing is confusing because I didn't know these were meant to be taken seriously. They all seem like backhanded compliments, especially if you know the context for how they think. Yeah, me too. That's why I thought that I feel like iDubbbz was playing this earnestly because he literally cries in one of the next clips. So Kasim says, I think Denim's one was good. Why would she say that she thinks he sucks in a segment that is supposed to be positive? Yeah, of course. I'm not saying that she's supposed to say that he sucks. Of course, they're all doing it. But I think like Philip Coffey, if you know the context of these creators, oftentimes these are backhanded compliments. These aren't like, yeah, I actually like and respect you. This is like, here's a virtue that I have that I actually think implies something shitty about you. That's the way that I read a majority of these, but maybe I'm being cynical. All right, let's watch Matt Lieb's statement.
And step into a more empathetic worldview. I know it's not easy.
Ethan Klein, I think that when you are being goofy, when you're being silly, when you are being lighthearted, and just having fun with your friends, I think that is when you're at your best. So I'd love to see more of that. That'd be sick.
I will be reading my letter off because I don't want to sound robotic. H3 used to be the...
So Matt Lieb, I'll agree with Gassim, that does sound earnest when he's like, hey, I like it better when you're goofing. Now, the backhanded read of that is, I wish you would stop talking about serious politics and getting upset. I wish that you would just go back to being goofy, right?
Sports for Good that I used to watch. I hope that one day gets back to what I remember. You were one of the inspirations for me to start creating content, so all this has stunk. I hope you really hear this, and I wish you the best.
I think Ethan Klein rocks a buzz cut pretty good, and I think he's got a good choice of facial hair. I think it's really cool what he did 8 years ago, fighting that frivolous lawsuit. That was pretty fucked up, and fighting it, he changed YouTube for the better. And I thought that was cool because I thought it was like he was fighting for free speech.
I also see the dynamic.
So hold up. So I will just accept that Frogan misses her old content with a creator that she used to respect. I'll accept that on face value. However, how do you tweet out, oh, this is what revolution looks like when like 1,000 Israeli civilians are being slaughtered, and then you get upset when you get unfollowed on Twitter by somebody who's married to an Israeli and who lived in Israel for prolonged periods? How do you square that circle for me, right? Now, she could have been just like really passionate about the Palestinian cause and she didn't know about all the civilian deaths. We could steelman her position, but she's doubled and tripled down since. And so I don't think she's deserving of that charity. And yeah, so basically like you can read it on face value if you want. That's totally fine. Same thing with Noah Samsen. I'll accept what Noah Samsen said, but I guarantee you that was all based in the past. If we asked about how Noah Samsen feels about Ethan Klein in the present, it would be a way different segment, right? Now, and here's the thing. So some people were saying that they thought this segment was sarcastic. I don't think it's sarcastic at all. Those people might have been being sarcastic and backhanded in what they were complimenting Ethan Klein on. But here's not Ethan Klein. Here's Ian genuinely crying to the therapist about how being harassed on the internet sucks. And so I think that was supposed to be like a moment of like wholesome levity where he actually is genuinely trying to take Content Cop, which is obviously a critical piece of content, but then turn it into something positive in the end. I don't think he succeeded, but let's go ahead and just take a look without my commentary.
You know, I also see the dynamic of Ethan and Eli. Like, fuck, like, it's really hard to be a couple online and see people attacking your partner, and it's like, okay, like, if you come to their defense, if that doesn't always help them, right? Sometimes that makes it worse for them.
And I have been kind of slipping into a very unhealthy place where it's gotten worse and worse, and I get criticized more and more, and I get more defensive and more pulled up, a feeling of almost infallibility that I could take anything on. It led me to make a lot of mistakes, and then when I was criticized for those mistakes, then I would act extremely defensive and nasty and not really processing them in a healthy way.
Okay, I think that's it. So hold on. Let's address that last segment real quick, because I think it's pertinent. All right. So he cries, which, you know, good for him, I guess. Crying in public, you know, you're trying to show that men can be emotional. Being a couple online is extremely hard. People are attacking your partner, and if you defend them, that doesn't always help them. I almost guarantee you that this was in reference to Anissa Joma having an OnlyFans, and then iDubbbz coming to her defense, and then the entire internet dogpiling them, and it being endless. And I agree with that, but he does something that I don't agree with, okay? Because he's probably seen therapists too much, okay? I'm going to move you guys over here so I can kind of look you in your eyeballs. I cannot turn my neck. I have not been able to turn my neck for a very long time. So I need to bring you in front of me, especially when I work out, it gets a little sensitive. So anyways. Ooh. So I understand that portion of the thing where he's like, it's tough being online and all that kind of stuff. Here's the thing. I love you guys. I do. I parasocially love you. All 50 of you beautiful souls who joined me this morning in order to hang out, in order to give donos, in order to like, in order to engage in chat, in order to do comments. I parasocially love you for hanging out with me. And your opinion does mean something to me at the end of the day. But if all of you, it would suck. Like Jonah Boy and I have been, digital parasocial friends for a long time. Razzle Smasher is a new addition to the team. I'm a fan that he's a groiper, but he's willing to listen to other people. K-Soko is obviously a passionate chatter. Philip Coffey I'm not calling him out, but was a Patreon supporter. But then, he probably didn't agree with me on a hot take, or he had other things to take care of. And so I haven't seen him for a while, but then he came back and now we're having fun in chat. Big in Gaming, another passionate chatter, Dude Man Sue, Gen X, Christian Valeris. I recognize your names. Okay. Chase. I recognize your names. Dr. Zayas. I recognize you. You're people. Okay. You're people on the other side of the screen who are chatting in my chat and hanging out and enjoying content with me. And I love that. However, okay, if every single one of you, okay, if every single one of you say, fuck you, Connor, you're a piece of shit, your take sucks, I hope you die, I hope you get cancer, then I'm going to walk into that room, and actually I have 2 dogs in here. I have 2 dogs in here that I love. I have 2 children that I love in the other room, although one of them's at school. I have a wife who I love. I have families who I love, and I'm a part of a community that I love. And so just because you guys bully me and say I'm a piece of garbage doesn't mean that I'm going to mix it up. Or like I say mix it up. I read that in chat. That doesn't mean that I'm going to, lose my shit. I have other aspects of my life that give me value and self-esteem and all that kind of stuff. And so I think iDubbbz, because he's an online person, Ethan Klein, because he's an online person, it's more difficult for them to separate the emotional realities from the digital world into the real world. And that's something that I would encourage people to move to, where this should be a place of fun, adventure, chat. It should be a place that you like to hang out, but this should not be your only social space. Okay. You should also work, hang out with your coworkers if they're cool. You should go to school and hang out with people from school if they're cool. You should go to third spaces like billiards rooms or bars or libraries or churches. And you should try, I do love you for being here, but you should try to have a social space outside of the internet so you can derive social value from places besides the internet. Working Bob says, what I am taking from this, Connor, is that I should get a dog, and I can't agree more. True. Literally, yes.